Development Advisory Committee. We acknowledge we're traditional lands of Treaty 4 territory, treaty signed with 35 First Nations across southern Saskatchewan, parts of Alberta and Manitoba, and the original lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. The City of Regina owes its strength and vibrancy to these lands and the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory, as well as settlers from around the world who continue to call Regina home. We got members of administration as well as committee attending today through video conferencing. Just cameras and microphones off, and then cameras and microphones on when you wish to speak. Hello, welcome back everybody. We have a new member. I'm going to ask, Jamie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah,
Sure.
Do I have to turn my mic on?
I already turned it on.
Okay.
It's magic.
Yeah. Danse. Natsiga-san. Jamie Lara, my name is Ochinia. I am from Cowses First Nation, and I sit here to occupy the space of Reconciliation Regina. So, ganansko mitten for allowing me to sit here with you.
Thank you so much. Jamie, for your benefit, I'm going to ask Chris to introduce himself next.
Sure, thank you. My name is Chris Lane. I am President and CEO at Economic Development Regina, and excited to see Jamie around the table.
Jamie, I don't know if you know Councillor Hawkins, but Councillor Hawkins.
Hi, Jamie. How are you? Bob Hawkins, Councillor Ward 2, Southwest part of the city.
Jason?
Welcome. I'm Jason Carlston. I'm on the Regina Warehouse Business Improvement District Board, representative here.
Thanks, Jason. And Stu.
And hi, I'm Stu Niebergo, and I'm the CEO of the Regina and Region Home Builders Association.
Thank you, Stu. Rob, you want to
go? Sure. I'm not sure why my camera is faced at a desk, but I don't have a fancy title. Rob Peterson. I'm the owner of Realty One in Regina. Developed multiple buildings in the Warehouse District, and formerly from the Warehouse District Association. So happy to be here.
Just going to say that you're showing a lot of respect to the warehouse, because I can see the thing, and there you go. Hi, Rob. Nice to see you.
Hi. Nice.
Excellent.
I'm not good with technology. I have a 15-year-old son to help me with this.
Agreed.
He's at
That's why we have
Miller football camp right now.
Excellent. All right, we'll go through the approval of the agenda. Can I have someone move a motion to approve the agenda at the college here after tabling communication 24-4 from Regina's Warehouse Business Improvement District Vision and Implementation Plan to the September 12th meeting?
Mayor, I would like to move that, but without the tabling motion, I think we need a brief discussion.
Okay, all right, we're not going to, I think basically we can table the plan to September 12th, but you would like to have a discussion about it?
Yep.
Okay, so, all right. That would be Councillor Hawkins. And so we will table the plan, but discussion is on the table first. Got it? Okay. I'll call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, I'll say carried. Can I have someone move a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the meeting held on February 13th, 2024? Thank you, Stu. Any errors or omissions? Okay, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Carried. So we had 24-4, the vision and implementation plan, off of the agenda. However, I do understand, Jason, that you'd be willing to speak to it as a member of the Warehouse Business Improvement District. Can you just give us a bit of a briefing in terms of that?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chairperson. We had submitted a letter along with the vision plan for the June meeting. Subsequent to that, with the delay of this meeting, our board met, and with the departure of our executive director, we discussed proceeding with this and decided that we wanted to adjust some of the funding request. Just thinking that some that we were looking at this year, we wanted to have some additional meetings with the administration and maybe look realistically at focusing on next year budget requests. So we're reworking what we had previously submitted, and given that the next meeting of this committee is 3 weeks from now, we anticipated coming forward then with the presentation, revised letter, and we've since had a meeting with the City Center branch and the parking branch to refine some of the asks that we have within the, related to the plan.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins, did you have any questions for Mr. Carlson?
Yes, thank you. First of all, council's a little bit interested knowing about the departure of Lisa and about what steps you've taken subsequent to that. That's the first question, and then I'll have something following on.
Yes, so Madam Chair, just recently Lisa Gibbons did depart and she went back to the downtown and is there with Judith now. So we've since posted the executive director position, and we've also looked at some part-time administrative support just to help us through some of the operational aspects. We do have one marketing director with the bid on staff and a part-time administrative person. So we are in the search for an executive director now. We feel we have some good momentum, so also members of the board have sort of picked up some of the committee work and continued with that. So you'll see that presentation in 3 weeks, and that would be related to the subcommittees that we have with the board.
Thank you, and follow up through you, Mayor. There's been informal discussion amongst some councillors about the way we structure our center city. I call it a greater downtown, but I got my hand slapped for that last time I tried it, but I'm going to continue. The question is this: why do we have RD bid plus warehouse district plus, to some extent, economic development Regina, EDR? To what extent are their goals aligned? To what extent do we need better coordination to develop the whole of the greater downtown of the city? Is this a moment, given changes in your organization, given changes, given multiple budget requests coming forward at a difficult budget time that we need to coordinate, given that we have visions that sometimes coordinate in the visioning, but not always in the execution, and given that there may be issues that could better be resolved by the stakeholders talking together and presenting to council a common view or a common coordination of what it is they're asking for, so that we don't arrive at council with one-off requests that don't fit easily into all of the various organizations that we have. To put it another way, it's tough for council to sort out individual requests, given that we're busy, none of us are experts, we have multiple departments to oversee. It's tough for us to sort out requests where there seems to be a competitive tension. And those are all related, I think, to organizational, not all, but to some extent related to organizational structure. And the discussion that's gone on very informally between only some councillors and not in any formal context, why is this happening? Now that's all complicated by an overlay on November 13th It may be that the new council isn't interested in this at all, or is more vitally interested in it, or, I don't know, has some other agenda, who knows? But I just want to put that out there, that as EDR and RD Bid and Warehouse and this group, and to some extent the remnants of the Catalyst Committee program go forward, are we doing it all in a coordinated way? Are we doing it in a disparate way? Are the right organizations bringing the right information to the table?
Your mic is on, sir.
If I may, Madam Chair, I think there's a few things in there. Related to business improvement districts, it would be typical in an urban environment that there's some, in this central area, greater downtown area, there's some common goals amongst the two bids currently. I think Cathedral is looking at potentially having a bid, but also there's some unique characteristics within each neighborhood. Coordination role is typically taken by the city, and I think recently the City Center branch has bolstered their resourcing and have a manager of City Center now, and I think that's where the coordination opportunity would exist. I think the two bids were very well connected, or have been very well connected, and with EDR, I think we have a better relationship with EDR now than we've had in the past, and we've been working with the City Center branch towards, I think, that coordination. And I think in most cities, whether it's, like we're talking to the Catalyst Committee or bids, the city should be playing a strong coordination role with organizations.
Mayor, if I might reply to that?
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Hawkins.
I think if those discussions are going on, they have to involve the council in some fashion. This is not interfering in the work of various departments. This is policy making at the highest level. And I think it's better to get council involved and knowledgeable of this at the early stages than having either a master plan announced to council and then council getting involved, or having various organizations picking out various pieces and coming to council on the who does what. So, for example, if a discussion is going on in the will go on in the context of the upcoming budget, which will be decided finally in the new year by the new council, if a topic like incentivization comes up, that's something that it's better that council know about that and be involved in the discussion than if some recommendation comes forward that council hasn't been involved in or has been unaware of, and council then starts to fashion the policy. It's just not the right approach, and council, I think, or some councillors are nervous about that.
Councillor Hawkins, did you require a response to that?
I don't require a response, no. I'm just putting it out there. If people have a response, I'd be very interested. I think my observation requires some response at some time, or I've put out a caution.
Does any other member of committee wish to ask any questions about the downtown bid? Sorry, not downtown, I'm going to get it right, Warehouse. I think that we'll have the vision and plan coming back, so I can talk about it. Go ahead, Rob, if you'd like to speak.
That helps.
I just want to thank Councillor Hawkins for bringing that up. I think it was 2007 when I was involved. Jason was there with me as well. I think it was 2007. Anyway, I went to International Downtown Association Conference in Portland, Oregon. And I think that was the time when we were trying to attract grocery stores to the warehouse district, and then downtown was trying to attract a grocery store. And there was different smaller bids in neighborhoods trying to attract the same thing. We went to Portland, and Portland had a very unique concept of how they did their city center. they had multiple areas, sort of like what we do. They had a downtown, they had a Pearl district, which is our warehouse district, a university district, and they amalgamated them all into the Pearl district of city center, university district of city center, downtown district of city center, etc., to have, again, more of a mass voice. Even though, like Jason said, and I really agree with what he's saying, that each neighborhood has different issues and a different environment. It did give them a greater voice, more population. And when I came back and brought that forward at the time, it was very similar, I think, to what Councillor Hawkins is talking about today. I think there would be, maybe something down the road where we could amass that, still have our individuality, but maybe have more power as a group. So I just want to thank you for bringing that up, because that's something we talked about years ago.
Thank you very much. Rob? Jason, have there been any conversations about this, or the reality is you're focused on, the warehouse district is a very large district. It's a really large, with kind of unique properties.
It is we have had some discussions in the past, or sort of ongoing, it comes up every once in a while. It is a large district, and I think you'll see in the vision plan presentation that we're really looking to focus certain activities and efforts within sort of a phasing plan in terms of focusing around Dewdney Avenue, where there's more immediate opportunities. And I think at this point, the momentum in the warehouse and the nature of the development in the warehouse is different than the downtown. It's different from the Heritage neighborhood, and it's different from Cathedral. So somewhat complementary, but certainly we wouldn't be chasing the same things now in terms of grocery stores and so forth that perhaps the downtown might be interested in. So I think the interests have overlap, but they're probably more desperate than they used to be.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the update. We'll go ahead. Mr. Lane. Chris, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. I just might add, as obviously EDR's representative here, that maybe part of this, what would be useful is for the group to know that as we are going through a strategic review and multi-year planning session here, I think Economic Development Regina has identified a series of improving and positive relationships among organizations, and an opportunity for some clarity and cooperation on how we discharge our mandates. So maybe that's driving a little bit of this conversation, and I think maybe Ken. One of the concepts that we've identified that we may have a role to play is sort of loosely termed economic placemaking outside of, or in the city, but outside of the jurisdictions of organizations like BIDS. And as we maybe explore that a little bit and put some specificity around it, it might open the door to, maybe what Mr. Peterson is referring to as, are there instances where we are better together as a group, aligned in actions and execution? So I think that, all to say there's certainly a willingness from EDR at a strategic lens, is that that there's an opportunity here to maybe evolve even once more in a more positive direction how we work with our like organizations in the city.
Thank you. Chris, I don't think you have an update on here, so I'm going to ask you the question. When you're going through some of your strategic review and those kind of multi-year plans that you're putting together, would you meet with the boards of the bid? Like, is that something you would do in terms of a presentation to bring folks on board?
Yeah, it's a good question, Madam Chair. I think there's certainly a stakeholder engagement process before we really finalize or really build out what a multi-year strategic plan for economic development in Regina would be. And to be clear, this organization has had obviously a series of single or 2-year business plans, but the idea of a 3 to 5 year strategic plan for the organization in support of but independent of what the city's strategic priorities are, that's a new process for this organization. So I think we are swimming in some new water here for EDR, and we wouldn't do that at all without engagement from like organizations and stakeholders in the city, and the bids are clearly one of them. I've said on the record multiple times, I don't know a great city that doesn't have a great downtown core, and our mandate is in my interpretation actually pretty clear to be able to support that work wherever it lands.
why don't I turn my mic on? Anyone else have any other questions as it relates to just the brief update from the warehouse bid? Again, we'll be seeing the vision and implementation plan in September in a few weeks. So if everyone's good with that, I'm just gonna. Yeah, all right, she wants me to. Can I just get a motion just to receive and file that update from the warehouse bid? Thanks, yeah, why not? Thanks, Mr. Carlson? And then just any opposed? Thank you. Okay, we are now going to consider 24-5, the Regina Downtown Business Improvement District Downtown Vibrancy Update. Can I ask Judith Versick from Regina Downtown Bid to come on down and introduce what you shared? Welcome, please go ahead.
Hi. I'm just waiting for it to queue up. Can I use, this is weird. Where's the mouse? So while we're getting it queued up, my name is Judith Versick. I'm the Executive Director of the Regina Downtown Business Improvement District. For those that are new to the City Center Core Development Advisory Committee, our boundary goes from the railroad tracks south to 13th, and then from Angus over to Halifax. And then we do have a little bit of a dogleg that goes along Broad down to College. We represent the commercial properties within that boundary, and I'm here today to give an update on the work that we've been doing in downtown. For those of you new to the committee, and for those of you who were not aware, Regina Downtown, through the work of the City Center branch here, was the recipient of a Downtown Vibrancy grant that kind of hit our clean team, our core activations, and our downtown beautification. So this presentation here is to give you an update on the work that we've been doing in those purviews. So here we go. Okay, I have provided a printout in the packages that you've received, so if you want more detail, but I know I don't have a ton of time, so I'll just kind of hit things a little bit higher level. The funding received from the city, like I said, hit the clean team portfolio, our downtown beautification, and then core activation. With the funding, we were able to increase our staff to 5 full-time employees and 1 part-time employees, and we increased our coverage to 6 days a week. The generosity of the city, we received a truck that allows us to fulfill the metrics that were set out in our agreement. We have purchased a larger power washer and a trailer, which will be in action within the next 2 weeks. We're just waiting for it to be delivered. In July, we collected over 1,500 pounds of litter, 79 needles, over 1,000 sidewalks. We've power washed downtown. We've removed 62 graffiti tags and 27 stickers. The Clean Team truck is going in for decaling next week, so you'll begin to see our branding out there on the street in the downtown and in Cathedral. Part of the agreement for this funding was that we would take over the services of removing waste from waste receptacles in downtown and Cathedral, as well as maintaining the transit shelters. Since the beginning of August, we've removed 200 pounds of waste on 13th Avenue, and then close to 600 in downtown. And I just wanted to show you this before and after of what some of the transit shelters look like, and then kind of what the time our team is able to give to each transit shelter just kind of shows the level of service, the heightened level of service we're able to give because we're able to focus on a smaller area. So this is the transit shelter at 11th and Lower next to the SaskTel building. With respect to downtown beautification, you may have seen the transit benches that were placed for the temporary bus stops along Lorne and 12th Avenue. We ended up wrapping the backs of these transit benches with artwork from Rari and Poli. We've done some work with them over the years, and they are actually originally from Regina, so it's great to have that local artist connection here. So while you're out and about downtown, if you see these benches, that's our project. So I'll just kind of flip through them really quickly. There were 10 of them. The big project we've been working on over the last month is the street mural that you may have seen at Copper Kettle. It's in between the two Copper Kettle outlets and then the Avord Tower and the Federal Building there, connecting Hamilton and Scarth. We worked with Bucks and Borders through their home court arm of the organization, and you can just see that bright pop of color there as the sun sets, and we really wanted to incorporate some bright colors to make it a little bit whimsical and beautiful in that neck of the woods. And this is kind of what it looks like on the ground. Our lighting is still up over that alley, and I had the opportunity to drive through it the other night, and it really is sensational. Our next project with Buckets and Borders, or Home Court, will be the parkade wall and alley between Lawrence Street and Cornwall Street at 11th Avenue, so kind of behind the Legion, if you will. We will be painting the parkade wall next month. The alley surface will be painted in spring, mainly because the city was wonderful and they were able to move up the repaving of that alley. But before we paint it, we just need some time. We need some time for it to sit before we can put paint on it. So that will happen in the spring. We're also doing painted murals. So the Victoria Park Maintenance Garage, Harley Sinclair is out there now working on his artwork that will be completed in mid-September. And then we're also doing some vinyl wraps on some blank walls, like the City of Regina Public Washroom Pavilion, which is the corner of Lorne and 12th. And our artist, Jolene McAllis, will be providing this digitally, and we'll print it out on vinyl and put it onto the building. We also have our outdoor art gallery, where we work with the various art galleries in our downtown area. This exhibition was curated by Dunlop and featured the work of Gina Dunbar, Matt Donnelly, Sadie Rose, and Brandy Jones. And you can see the artwork out there right now on these big black boxes that we use as our outdoor art gallery. As part of the construction traffic accommodation safety effort, the city placed some Jersey barriers in after Pat Fiacco Plaza. Our team painted them just to give it a pop of color against this really gray surface. So if you go down there, you can see these beautifully painted Jersey barriers that just add a little bit of color to the downtown. And we also had commissioned 10 planters that were placed in between the Jersey barriers. These planters were fabricated by Regina Trades and Skills, and we worked with volunteers from the Hotel SAS to put the plantings in earlier this year. What is up next is the installation of Edison lighting on FW Hill Mall and Pat Fiacco Plaza. I believe those will be installed towards the end of August. Our core activation strategy focuses on some of the activation spaces downtown. This project, I have there confidential, and we haven't officially announced it yet, but it is kind of out there because we had to go for a discretionary use approval. So we're working on a site activation at the Gordon Block Burns Hanley, which we're naming the Square, kind of a play on City Square, which is adjacent to it. This activation space will be built out using shipping containers, and it will also provide some space for a storage compound for some of our operational assets. So just a graphic here. We're looking at a stage on the north end, a bar or food and beverage type facility, definite activation space fronting the plaza. Capacity will be 250. However, if we want to bring in more, we just got to bring in more porta-johns. And yeah, we're working through the development permit application right now. We did receive the discretionary use permit, so we're moving on to that next phase, and we're hoping to do a sod turning in the coming months, which you will all be invited to. Other downtown initiatives that I wanted to share that aren't necessarily funded through this grant include our Regina Street Team. The funding from that program comes from CSER, which is also part of the City of Regina. So we did relaunch the program in May 2024 with a name change. Oh, I forgot that this is like a... So anyways, some of the feedback that they get from the community is extremely supportive. I think they've been really well received. There's definite trust built between our community members and the team, and that just makes some of the tracking and the reporting a lot easier when those relationships are built on trust. I've included some of their metrics from January to June 2024, and I'm very pleased to share with you that we have been notified that the province of Saskatchewan will be also funding this program. I believe the first installment funding from August through to March 31st in the amount of $205,000, and then we're also working on the next phase. So you will also be invited to that funding announcement with the city. We have ongoing Summer in the Square programming. We partner with folks across the community, like the Regina Salseros, the RPL, the Writers Guild. We've worked with the City of Regina on the Knowledge and Nature activation. Our new partner, Canadian Western Agribition, they came out and did a dance class on the two-step. And our downtown cinema continued this year. We did 2 nights. Our partnership with the Warehouse District and the Chamber of Commerce, the City Building Speaker Series, we've kind of extended that to loop in the RPL. The next 2 events are on August 28th, which is our Community Wellbeing Panel, and September 25th, the panel will be about downtown revitalization, really focus on the local edition. So we'll have speakers from our community talking about what they see the future of our downtown and what keys to revitalization they feel they want to share. So very excited about that. Both events will be held at the RPL Film Theater in the evening. I think it's at 7 p.m. Other projects that we've been working on that are not glamorous. Our pedestrian count, we have a membership survey ongoing, a vacant storefront survey. We've been doing some outreach with the FW Hill Mall businesses to coincide with some of the work that the city is doing in terms of getting information about Scar Street Mall. And we have bi-weekly construction information meetings with businesses that are impacted by the construction that was on 11th and Sass Drive this year. So just to wrap up, I've shared with you some key dates that I would love to see you come out to. We have Nuit Blanche this Saturday. They're coming back downtown after spending a number of years in the Warehouse District. The Wellbeing Panel, our funding announcement is scheduled for the 5th of September. Our cleanup day, which typically we would do in the spring, we're now doing twice a year. So we have a cleanup day scheduled for September 21st, and we're always looking for volunteers. And then our Clean Team Partnership announcement, we're working with the City of Regina Comms Department on a date to kind of announce some of the funding and the work that we're doing with them with respect to the truck that was donated. And eventually we'll have our square sod turning event once we have a better idea of when the timing will work for this. So Hopefully this provided the information you're looking for. I am happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Thanks very much. Judith, Councillor Hawkins has some questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Judith. Lots of good news there, especially, I think, the clean team, and especially the outdoor art projects that you've outlined. My first question is this. Just about every day, right from my wife's friends to mostly women working in the downtown area to my residents, they say to me point blank, we're not going downtown. You say it's safe, but we don't think it's safe. We're just not going there. I know it's an impossible question. I know you always get it. But how do you get the news about what you're doing now out to those people? And what other steps do you think you need to take for them to come downtown?
Through the chair, thank you for that question. And yeah, it's tough going right now. I mean, you hear it, I hear it. I mean, and our businesses hear it. And the answer is multi-pronged. I think we are making a presentation to RPS commissioners next week, just kind of sharing the experience of our businesses. We do have a few asks that will go in with that presentation. The feedback from their, I think they called it the all-out policing initiative that occurred over the summer. The feedback that we've received from our businesses was very positive. So if RPS can kind of build that into like regular operations rather than it being one-offs if people have extra overtime, that sort of thing, that is a real goal. We're looking forward to the launch of the Alternate Resource Officer program, which I'm told will start the day after Canadian Thanksgiving. So that will put more patrol on street that will not be pulled away to other areas of the city. They will be on foot or on bike in the city. And the directive is really to build up relationship with businesses that are downtown and enhance that visibility for both the business and the employees and anyone who comes downtown, feeling that it's being watched, observed, reported, so there's prompt response if something's going wrong. We do have a safety task force internally, and I know these are things that are kind of more internal rather than external, because we just kind of have to get our sea legs underneath us. That being said, not to take a dig at Jason, but I have a new director of downtown vibrancy, and we are going to be working on what that communications plan looks like with respect to general public about all the great things we're doing. And I think being able to leverage the opening of the square, or the momentum that's going to generate to renew interest in downtown and start putting forward that different story, I think will be key.
Thank you. I have a very brief comment in response to that, and then, Mayor, if I can have one other question. I think that the employees who work downtown, particularly at lunchtime, need to know it's okay to go out for lunch. What I'm hearing, largely from employees in large law firms, curiously, associates, employees, they say, well, we're just afraid to go out for lunch because someone's going to accost us or yell at us or whatever. So if you can find a way to communicate to those people, I think that's a start to activation. Mayor, I have one other question. It occurred to me while you were talking, or I might have given you a heads up on this. On August 12th, the mayor received a letter copied to all the councillors from the Canadian Federation of Small Business. And the letter talked about the burden of high costs and red tape associated with sidewalk patio permits. And it sets out how in some cities, Ottawa, Quebec City, St. John's, those permits were high. It goes on to talk about how in the pandemic, many communities lowered those permits to encourage activities, but as it says, unfortunately, there's been some return now to the higher permits. I'm going to quote this. Unfortunately, many municipalities have since reverted to previous policies, reinstating fees and regulatory hurdles that threaten the survival of many local restaurants already struggling with rising costs. And then I want to underline this paragraph. There are, however, municipalities that are leading by examples. Cities like Winnipeg and Saskatoon, so our immediate neighbor cities, have recognized the value of sidewalk patios for hospitality businesses and have implemented policies to support growth within the sector. Both cities have eliminated permit fees for summer sidewalk patios and require minimal documentation, only floor plans and proof of insurance, with Winnipeg processing applications in less than a day. Similarly, Moncton has simplified its process, reducing document requirements and opting not to charge businesses by size, but by a flat fee, which they claim has saved the average business $450. My question is this, and it'll be a question for the administration. What are we doing? And why aren't we doing at least as well as Winnipeg and Saskatoon?
Thank you for the question, through the chair. I do know during pandemic, the City of Regina also removed all fees for patio. I am going to refer to Eric about if and when it came back. I'm not quite sure. But that being said, I agree that streamlining of all permits for businesses, I think, should be a goal for the city. That's something that we saw and put into our city building report that kind of came out of some of those trips that we did. And I think part of the challenge is making sure we address the needs of the existing business, but also look forward to hopefully the future business and making sure that they're aware of all these things that we want to put in place to make it easier for them to do business in downtown. And, I think about patio fees and the impact of these fees on business. So we just did our pedestrian count, and it's one day, we just go out, it's usually a Thursday in July, and we've been doing this over the course of the year. And in FW Hill Mall in 2019, in one day, there was close to 7,900, so 7,900 people that walked through FW Hill Mall. And at that time, you had Beer Brothers, there was the Famoso had a patio, there was Good Earth putting out chairs there, you had the Indian place, it's changed names, but they had a small patio, Fat Badger was out there, the shop was putting out tables and chairs, that sort of thing. In 2021, coming out of starting to recover, that number went from 7,900 to 3,800 in one day. We are not back at that number yet. The count this year was 5,400, so 5,400. And we're down a bunch of restaurants. So I think, especially when we're thinking about Scar Street Mall, which has a whole other layer to it, we really need to start thinking about what is the future makeup of business on that street, and how do we put in place the policies, fees or lack of fees, to make sure we get to that and to enable that, to facilitate that. And I don't think we've had a really good conversation about what that is. Hopefully some of the results coming out of the work that the city is doing with respect to outreach on the future of Scar Street Mall will help inform that. But from our own visioning process within my organization, conversations with businesses that own their buildings or are located on that property, we have a pretty good feeling of where we want to go with this. And yes, streamlining, removing barriers to activation, whether it's a patio or anything else, I think is something that we would endorse and lobby for in the coming years.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Mayor, I think administration would like to say
Oh,
something.
hang on one second. We're going to talk about permits. So Counselor, you're going to go on permits? All right, Mr. DeWall, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Masters. This summer, council passed the downtown vibrancy initiatives, and council actually passed a new bylaw which waived all fees for patio permits for 2024 and 2025. And during the year of 2025, we are reviewing that process to try and do exactly what you're describing and streamline that process so that we can make sure that patios are established with as much ease as possible.
Permitting.
So the documentation of permitting right now is really centered around public safety. And when we looked at other jurisdictions, we do need to review how patios are currently implemented. So if you were to review the patio, there's a couple patios in the downtown now. If you were to go look, you would see that they are closer to traffic and that there is a minimal amount of buffer between the roadway and the patio. And so we just want to review some of those things and make sure that we can streamline it, but also make sure that the public's safe at the same time.
Mayor, through you, and finally on this, if Winnipeg and Saskatoon can do this, they're concerned about public safety too. I think we need a can-do attitude towards this kind of thing.
Through you, Mayor Masters, absolutely. We don't disagree, and we will absolutely look at those jurisdictions in this
Thank you.
process.
Thanks very much, Mr. DeWall. Mr. Niebergall, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Judith, for this presentation. The stuff you guys are doing is absolutely fantastic, and, you know, just encourage you to do more. I mean, the more alleys you can paint, then the more lights you can get up, and that is so awesome. And I wanted to also just comment on Councillor Hawkins' comments on, you know, the patio, the patios there, because, you know, Chris Lane had said earlier that he doesn't know of a great city that doesn't have a strong core, and I agree with that 100%. And on top of that, I don't know of a city that is great that doesn't have great patio dining throughout the city. But layered on top of that, I would add food trucks to that as well. And I'd just like to get your perspective on food trucks, because I remember a time before the pandemic, might have been 2016, 17, etc. We were really seeing the food truck market start to really take hold. You know, it was at the growth part of that. And then it did appear on the outside, and I don't have inside baseball on this, that the city fee structure, et cetera, in that same way, completely crushed that industry in our downtown. And so, you know, I just wondering if you have some insight to the state of that today, and is that part of activation opportunities, you know, within our downtown as well? I know that's a lot there.
Oh, no.
to unpack.
Through the chair, I always laugh because I've been around for a while and I kind of remember things. So yes, there was a considerable fee associated with food trucks back when they were introduced, and it was like a brand new novel thing. And I want to say it was like upwards of $2,000 per season. I know during pandemic, again, those were all waived. I think where we're at now with downtown is that it's a multiple things. So we've reduced, I think we're down to like just the cost of the electricity, because when the food trucks come down, they do use electricity in the FW Hill Mall. They plug into like a 220. So part of the fee is cost recovery of electrical use. But they still have to get a permit to operate in public space. Mm-hmm. So what is happening is that places like the Wholesale Club on 4th and Broad, private lot, come anytime, you don't have to pay anything. Right. That's pretty appealing. And then downtown too, like, it's a challenge shared by the bricks and mortar, where there isn't consistent employee levels in every office every day, right? So depending on where you're working, you might be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you might be Tuesday and Thursday, you might be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So that predictability of this 35,000 strong employment base coming down to work in downtown, it's been like dispersed across the 5 days. So I know the bricks and mortar, they don't know how to staff, they don't know how to plan because they don't know if it's going to be busy or not, or if everyone's taken an EDO or they're working from home that day. So the cost of the permit to come in and not really know, not having that predictability is a challenge. So yeah, it's kind, I believe the response is a lot deeper than what it looks like on the surface. On top of that, this year we're under construction, so it's just kind of challenging because everything's constricted onto the plaza, and you have to kind of navigate through some Jersey barriers and in order to park your food trucks. So and that's kind of going to be the state of construction for the next couple of years. So I think there are opportunities for our organization and Mr. DeWall and his team to kind of figure out what is that balance, what is that trigger that we can put into place that will kind of bring back that renewed interest.
Right. Good. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Nevigal. Ms. LaRock, please go ahead.
All right, thank you, Judith, for that presentation. It's nice to see what's going on, and being new to this table and getting my head wrapped around some of the activities, future and past. Looking at your update here, I have a couple of observations, maybe even a question. Your downtown beautification project in regards to those benches. Lovely art. I'm just curious to know, is there any thought in regards to engaging the Indigenous artists? I do see that we have a outdoor art gallery that showcases the arts of Indigenous artists. That's just one piece, right? That's just another observation and a question as well. In regards to your downtown lighting for the FW Hill Mall and for the Pat Fiacco Plaza, and I see you're looking at wanting to install some lighting at the end of August. Just a kind of a thought for the month of September leading up to September 30th. To be able to utilize, and I don't know what color of light bulbs you're going to be using, perhaps maybe orange, to be able to acknowledge the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, whether you leave it up for the one day or the full month. That's just an observation on my part. And lastly, too, in regards to some of your activities from January to June of this year, I noticed you had given out about 1,100 bottles of water. I'm always conscious of preserving Mother Earth, and I would imagine those bottles of water would have been thrown in the trash receptacles. And even though some of us would say, oh, I'll grab them out of there later when you have your team cleaning up the site, most of the time they don't grab them. They just tie up the garbage bag and then it's off to the landfill. Those were just a few of my observations I wanted to bring here, and perhaps even some questions, or if you have any comments on those, that would be greatly appreciated. So, thank you.
Through the chair, first of all, welcome to the committee. It's so nice to meet you. So you had three things. So art, yes, all of our art projects, we have engaged or had opportunity for Indigenous artists to participate. The work that the painted mural on the maintenance garage is being done by Harley Sinclair, who is Indigenous. And the last 3 years, we have worked with Indigenous artists to produce a special, unique orange T-shirt for the day. So we have kind of like a series, and Harley is actually doing ours this year. So we're very excited to work with him and to provide him that opportunity. We do a lot of artwork or art projects as part of our Frost, the Frost event. Since its inception, we have actually worked with CCCDAC to make sure that we do have submissions from artists of Indigenous background. The CCCDAC representative is actually on our adjudication committee. So there's been a lot of interaction with the Indigenous arts community. We just so happened to, because on that project we needed to go really quick, and I knew those artists had like a series of pieces that would fit the scale, the size ratios, aspect ratio of those benches. So we used them. That being said, one of the artists is also is a visible minority. And then I think too, we didn't include it here because it was our project last year, our engagement on the path to reconciliation with with Gina Dunbar and Brandy Jones.
Yep.
I think that's something that we're extremely proud of, and kind of represents the work that we do with the Indigenous arts community. So appreciate some of the feedback, and I think maybe what we can do is just maybe, we usually go out through social media to kind of highlight our work with that, and maybe we just need to do it a little bit wider ranging. The next question was about the lighting on the wall. So the Edison lights that we're installing on FW Hill Mall and the plaza, they are simple Edison lights from Costco, so they will be just white, white lights. Those do not have the functionality to have like the LED color changing, but that being said, when we do move forward with our development on the Gordon Block, the Square project, we have flagged that we do want LED lighting that we can change. So we would be able to do exactly what you said, use orange lighting during the month of September. We want to have the flexibility for all of those meaningful dates to our community, to be able to light up the space to reflect that. So unfortunately, with our budget on this lighting project, we cannot do the LEDs. We just have to go through Costco, which actually have a really good product and have lasted longer than some of the commercial pieces that we've bought in the past. Lastly, it was the bottles, and I share your concern with the bottles. We have in past purchased cheaper reusable bottles, and encouraged folks to use the bottle refill station, both at the temporary one, the one that the city puts in at the hydrant, and then at the pavilion. That's also challenging because people do still throw those away. It's really frustrating when we see we've given them away and then they end up in the garbage, and now I really can't use it, right? Because I can't sanitize it to give it you just can't do that. So it's something that we struggle with. We do appreciate the city's summer installation of that temporary water fountain, and that addresses some need, obviously not all, but I think if there's an alternate solution to plastic water bottles, it's something that we should try to explore as a community, not just this program.
Thank you, Judith. I'm very much keen to what you're talking about, and of the know when it comes to your path, or the path of reconciliation that was done last year, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Along Scar Street. So I think that's a great idea, but then rather than just doing it one-offs, can we have it embedded into, because we all know September 30th comes every year. So to be able to do those types of initiatives ongoing, I think really sets a commitment and a precedence within this community, right? Yeah, it's too bad that we've missed an opportunity here when it comes to the lighting of the plaza, because it would just bring the awareness. So thank you for your responses. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of committee have any questions? You're good, Jason? I'm just asking because you didn't ask any questions. Judith, 11th Avenue. What's going on in your understanding with transit there? I'm asking specifically because we're moving transit every summer and going to keep moving transit every summer if we don't just leave it where it is. And so I'm just curious, do you have a preference?
The preference of our board would be to maintain consistency without the move back and forth. It's confusing to the user when, you know, on this day, it flips the switch and now you got to start walking somewhere else. So that would be our preference through the winter months. We do need to contact Regina Transit to have that conversation. I just haven't had a chance to do that yet, but it is on our radar and it has been noted by our board that that would be the preferable option. Long story short, we've talked about transit for years, and where the temporary stops are now, what was the location that we had hoped the transit hub would be, like the permanent transit hub would be. So
Yeah, it was supposed to be Vic, Broad, Albert, and Sask Drive, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, Mr. DeWalt, do you know the answer to what's happening this fall with, are we leaving transit where it is so that we're not popping it back and forth?
Through you, Mayor Masters, we did have discussions with Transit on the location of where they wanted it to be. Transit suggested that from an accessibility point of view, they prefer it on 11th. I don't want to speak for Transit, but we asked Transit to review this with the Accessibility Advisory Committee, which they did. And the feedback that they received there indicated that they did want it on 11th. So Transit at this time is intending to move it back to 11th for the winter.
Okay, but Councillor Hawkins, correct me if I'm wrong, the master transit plan, holy cow, the master transit plan that was approved was supposed to be Victoria, Broad, Albert, and...
Yeah, through you, Mayor Masters, that is correct. And that transit master plan, my understanding, comes into effect upon completion of the 11th Avenue project. And so it's at that time that we would switch to those stops that would be at those four corners. And 11th would no longer be a transit hub, and in fact, there wouldn't be a transit hub in the way that we know it today. It would switch to 4 key transit stops where you could make those transfers, but that change won't happen until, I understand it's 2026.
Go ahead, sir.
Through you, Mayor Masters, as Mr. DeWall has said, that's 100% accurate, and the reason that change won't happen is because it's the increase in hours that need to happen over the next number of years if approved by council. So we're introducing new increased hours right now at the end of August, and there'll be budget requests to increase hours in the coming years so that we can go from 60-minute stops, 60-minute breaks to 30-minute breaks. So residents aren't waiting for the bus for 60 minutes if they happen to miss it.
Sorry, and it was 2026 that we move and go into that.
Through the chair, yeah. So after 11th Avenue construction is complete, which is estimated in 2026, and if the hours are approved by council to expand transit service, that would be the objective.
Apologies, Mr. Doney. Why would the hours need to be approved in order for, say that one more time?
If we approve additional hours for transit, then we'll move from a, it's called a pulse system. So right now, 11th Avenue, all the buses come there, they stop, then they reload and they go again. We're moving away from that to a, I think it's called a time point system, where they just run every 30 minutes. And so right now, if we made that change, that wait would be 60 minutes, which is a bit unreasonable. And so we need the increased hours to bring that down to a 30-minute wait.
Thank you. That makes more sense to me now. All right. Judith, what other kind of help do you need?
Like mental health help? No.
I'm only good for so much, so
Right.
that's probably not it.
So some of the things that we had talked about, we're going to the RPS Commission. We want to launch a, or look at a security camera pilot program. So more details will come to you at that commission meeting. The safety piece, more enforcement, appropriate bylaws to help or to give RPS the tools to enforce nuisance behavior, I think is important. I don't know if it's in place yet or if it's addressing all of the behaviors that we're trying to deter. This one-time grant, the Downtown Vibrancy Grant, we will have to have a conversation in 2025 with respect to funding for the enhanced street cleaning, the Clean Team program. The funding is enough to get us through this year. However, that is heightened operational expenses for us beyond next July. So a conversation will have to be had whether or not it goes back to the city or if Regina Downtown continues that enhanced service. So as we're coming to the budget, that's probably a conversation that we should have. And then I am always excited to talk about ways to improve the impact of construction on 11th on our businesses. I feel, and I don't want to steal Eric's thunder, but we've learned a lot this year, and hopefully we can put some of those things into place. I would love it if the city could explore extending work hours. So if the contractor can work up until 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. every day and shorten up the construction season, that would be beautiful. But I don't understand where that, what, I'm sure it's a budget thing as to why that can't happen. But yeah, like just anything we can do to minimize the impact of construction and the length of time of construction would be welcome. And some of that will come down to dollars and cents, and some of it will come down to policy. So we just need to suss out what's what.
Yes, based upon very angry parkade, people trapped in a parkade from eHealth. Yeah, an outreach to Sask Power when they were able to lengthen their hours. I know it alleviated it in a lot faster, as did sending out folks to move traffic, because believing that we're all just going to find our way is.
Yeah. And I guess I'll throw in my personal pitch. Please fund the library. Just put it in the bay. Like, let's call it a day and be done. So
Why is the library important?
the library is, that's the catalyst project for downtown. Like, obviously, all of the catalyst projects are important for our community, and I know I am on record, and my organization is on record, stating that an arena is very important to downtown, but the library is, like, it's imminent. We have the Globe opening up this year. We're very excited about that. But the library is the one that's in front of you right now, ready, hopefully, to go soon. I have a large department store and potentially a tenant that will be moving out of said large department store on the upper floors, and that footprint would work really well with the needs of a library. So might be speaking out of turn here, but I've been around for a while, so here you go.
You're a resident.
That's where we
You
should.
get to say whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's the way this
Focus
works.
on that. Like, let's pick some low-hanging fruit. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's utilize, facilities that are already existing that will be underutilized in a year, and let's just throw as much support as we can to get this done, because the library is super important to our community and to the youth of this community, providing them with free programming, places to go, and just be and not have to spend any money. There's no barrier to being at the library, aside from, not good behavior. And then also, I do appreciate your decision late last night to help provide some funding for the Creative City Center, putting on like looking at the work that they do in terms of that entry level, getting emerging artists onto, into the industry, getting them trained. I think that is huge bang for your buck in terms of the funding that you've approved for their capital projects. So I really appreciate that. Let's just keep that momentum going and hopefully support them as they're going through their capital campaign.
Thanks, I just want to follow up. When are you going to commission?
Tuesday,
That one?
28th.
Okay, yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Nuisance behavior, that request is in?
That will be coming to you tomorrow. The presentation is being sent to Elaine tomorrow.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to go back to 11th Avenue. Do you know the percentage of Cornwall patrons that use 11th Avenue?
I believe, well, with the construction of the two doorways, the
No,
damage.
yeah, but do you know that how, on average, in a normal year, how many people come in that 11th Avenue door?
I would say 70% of their traffic goes through that door. She'll have different, Kendra will have different numbers because COVID has hit them, but I will be happy to get that information for you.
Yeah, it's big. a
It's big. That's their main
big
door.
number.
Yeah.
So 4 or 5 years of construction is pretty devastating, yeah. I know.
They're down, I think, 6% sales on average across all the businesses there, and there are some vacancies that I know they're working on backfilling, but it's a challenging time for anyone who's in business downtown.
I'll see you next Tuesday. Oh, sorry, I apologize. Councillor Hawkins would like to close off here.
Just very briefly, thank you for your words about the library. You were here when council voted to increase, or to give support to the library through the elevating the debt limit. That's under discussion again. I just want to say to you, it makes a huge difference when organizations like yours come forward and say at council the kind of comments you made here. Thank you very much.
I'm not sure he could have dropped a bigger hint, Judith, but thanks very much
Nothing to
for being here.
lose.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
You bet. I just, you know what, I apologize. Mr. DeWalt, is there anything that you wanted to kind of add as you were listening? I know we asked you some questions kind of off the cuff, but is there anything you wanted to add in terms of some of the work you're doing?
Through you, Mayor Masters, I do have some comments, but I have an update coming in a little bit,
Okay.
and I think I can include it all in there.
Awesome, thank you. All right, can I get a motion to receive and file the Downtown Business Improvement District Quarterly Update? Thank you, Mr. Lane. Any opposed? Carried. All right, we're going to consider item 24-6, the planning and permitting update. I'm just going to turn Ms. Dawson, Ms. Bryden, your mics are both on. Do you need another one on? We're good?
No, not right now.
You don't want to talk? Are you sure? Come on up. Okay, please go ahead. We have a presentation, so I'm going to ask Deputy City Manager Deborah Bryden to introduce the communication. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Masters, I don't have much to say. This is just our update on planning and development services in the downtown area, and Ms. Dawson and Mr. Weens are here to provide a presentation and answer any questions.
Thank you, through you, Chair. My name's Autumn Dawson, Director of Planning and Development with the City of Regina, and I have with me Jonathan Weens, Manager of Permit Services, Partnerships and Permit Services, sorry. And as Ms. Bryden said, we're here today to give our regular update on building and development in the city center core area, as well as some other work that we've been working on to try to encourage planning and development activity to occur. So we'll start with a few notable permits and approvals that happened in both Q1 and Q2, so there could be a little bit of overlap from a Q1 presentation. But for the downtown, we did see some activity at the Cornwall Center. There has been some permits pulled there, notably for the vehicle accident that occurred at the front doors. Permit for repairs on the pedway between the BMO building and the Cornwall. We're working with the Globe Theatre, and they're looking to update their staircase, and I think that item was before council to encourage accessibility at their front entrance, and so we're working through that with them. We have tenant fit-ups and new business development downtown, including a new breakfast place coming off of the Plaza and RBC Data Center. Those were some of our higher construction valued permits. And there was a number of other smaller tenant fit-ups and renovations due to office space being moved around and those types of things. In the warehouse and outside of the downtown, we saw a new permit for Encore Secondhand Market, which is in the warehouse district, and that's being run by the YWCA. Another approval for the Cloud Rider building in the warehouse, and there's been some restaurant renovations, and a new pool hall was approved on Dudney. So there continues to be requests from businesses with help to renovating existing buildings, change of use permits, servicing analysis, and other issues, and we continue to work with business owners and building owners on those issues. One exciting initiative that I wanted to make you aware of is that we've been working on something to assist and help expedite permits for existing buildings. And I specifically want to thank Kelton Comrie for his work on this. So this is an exciting initiative, and this could likely be the first of its kind in Canada. So we know how important existing homes are when they are converted to commercial spaces. Some of our favorite places in Regina are when old homes have been converted into businesses, and we're able to still see life out of that building, and it creates vibrancy in and around our city center. So residential housing has many code relaxations, which makes conversion to new commercial spaces extremely costly and prohibitive, sometimes for small business owners. So through this project and with the help of some building code engineers, we created an in-house alternative solution that owners can use. So we paid for the cost of that alternative solution that owners can use to reduce their design and construction costs while maintaining life safety. So we expect this to save tens of thousands of dollars for each conversion project, and we are hoping to roll this out in Q3 and get it on our website and get it active and in the hands of the bids, the chamber, and any small business owner that may be thinking about a purchase or a conversion such as this. So just for a little bit of background, the building code is adopted for use by our provincial government, but our team is leveraging a process that's called the alternative solution, and so it's not using the black and white code. So it's really based on some technical information that I don't need to go into with this team, but it's just exciting that we were able to kind of provide the blueprint to get from a house to a commercial entity. So instead of individual owners and their design team having to complete complex reports or perhaps not having the experience to know how that's even possible, we're trying to make this a universal solution for many. So we did recognize that this was one of the key barriers for many of our owners, future buyers, realtors, and we wanted to try to reduce that stress, costs, and time for them. So we're really excited about this initiative and hope to see it in the hands and used by many. So moving on, Council will see more about this in September. But I just wanted to share that we've been working on our revitalization and intensive initiatives, and just wanted to highlight some of the ones that have utilized it in the city center core. So just so we remember, the revitalization and intensification incentive programs launched in 2023. It was a 2-year pilot program. To date, all of our grants have been provided, and that was a total of $600,000 over the 2-year process, and 1.7 estimated in tax exemptions have been approved through the program. We will continue to review and accept eligible programs under the tax incentive piece of this until September 30th. But as I said, our grants have all been provided. So what's next? We have started our review to evaluate the performance and lessons learned over the last 2 years with respect to meeting the primary objective of intensification and revitalization in our city center core. I will note that grant dollars available beyond the 2024 pilot project will be subject to approval by City Council. So we only received the approval for that 2-year time period. But we do plan to bring forward some recommendations on, some of those lessons learned and some new asks because it was utilized in our community. We have requested feedback from our residents and business owners who have utilized this program, and we're going to bring more feedback to council, but we're curious from the bids or EDR or anybody else in your world who have utilized this or who may have wanted this, what some of that feedback might have been. So we would appreciate some of that back to us as well. So that is our ask of the committee. And as for heritage incentives, for those of you that may not be familiar, this is a program specific to our heritage properties within the city. In 2024, the value of incentives approved total in the city were close to $1 million, and with 626 allocated to the properties within this boundary. So because most of our heritage properties are within the city center core, a majority of the incentives do go to that area. The properties receiving the incentives are commercial, multifamily, family, and mixed-use properties. All right, I know I'm moving fast, but we are moving now on to a topic called the Housing Accelerator Fund, and I just wanted to give the committee an update on where we're at with the Housing Accelerator Fund. Our work on this program is expanding citywide housing options. We've been really busy with this work. As you can see, we've worked through phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of this project, introducing permissions to allow for additional dwelling units per lot, removing parking requirements citywide, and increasing height limitations for apartments and multi-unit dwellings. So we've introduced what we're calling the primary intensification areas, which are along our transit corridors, and our secondary intensification, which are located around our transit hubs, allowing up to 6 stories and 4 stories as of right, respectively. This summer, the team has been busy working on communicating with the community on updates to neighborhood plans. We do plan on bringing that phase of work to council in September, and we have some adjustments to those neighborhood plans that would allow us to continue to introduce new forms of housing in communities and to hit some of those targets that we've outlined for ourselves under the Housing Accelerator Fund. So the work will continue beyond September. As you can imagine, with this work, our zoning bylaw has been ripped apart and tried to reassemble it in some sort of fashion. Our goal is to make it user-friendly again. Right now, we've put a bunch of different Band-Aids on it, but we will be spending some time reworking that to make sure that anybody who picks it up who may be interested in developing in our community understands what that means to them, and that there's clarity for our customers. And of course, we'll have to monitor the outcomes and adjust as needed. There has been some concern in the community about some of the adjustments that we've made, and we've promised to ensure that we're monitoring those outcomes. One of those is parking. And so if we see problems in that, we would certainly bring that forward to this committee and council as well. I will note that in the downtown, there was previously parking exemptions within the downtown, and so there would be no change in effect for the downtown area. And the last piece that we had to talk to you about was the work that we've been doing with the warehouse bid. And I actually didn't realize that we weren't going to be speaking about that today. So if the committee is comfortable, I could bring the last two slides when we meet again in September and talk about the work that we're doing with the warehouse bid. It's all good work, and we're happy to continue to collaborate with the warehouse on that vision plan work. So if that's okay with the committee, I will pause that and continue in September when the warehouse has brought that forward.
Sounds good. Seems offside to have members, not have members of the bid here if you're going to be doing that. So that's good. Thank you very much. You know what, someone's going to open with questions. We have a legislative break in 4 minutes. Why don't we just take 15 minutes right now? I'll be back at 22, if that works. I think we only have a couple more things, and we should be able to finish up. Thanks. Welcome back, folks. Can I just get a mover on this report before we ask questions? Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. I'll open up the floor. Any questions for planning and permitting update? All right. All right. Jason, you're up first. Please go ahead.
More on the neighborhood plan piece there that you guys are currently working on. Most of the feedback you are getting from the neighborhoods, that's through the Be Heard Regina. Are there other mechanisms you have in place to be getting that feedback as well for the neighborhood plans?
Yes, thank you for the question. Through our communication plan, we have outlined that we will be doing Be Heard, and that's an online tool that the city uses to share information and to gather feedback. We post our questions and answers that we hear. We have also been available through individual phone calls, service requests, and we have also attended a number of public events when requested to attend, and met individually with community associations as well.
And have you been seeing lots from the different communities that are out there related to the neighborhood plans? Or because when I've been on the Be Heard page, like the stuff's on there is very informative. I just don't see that a lot of people are participating in that right now.
Yeah, I think through you, Mayor Masters, I think that it's somewhat of a confusing topic to the general public. Those who are aware of what the neighborhood plan is and how that relates to zoning are more involved, I would say. But we're trying to communicate that so citywide we understand what that means. We certainly do have more conversation in person with those that are asking us to, address specific questions about their certain neighborhoods or, where they live. But yeah, that might not all make it online.
And lastly, when do you see all this being concluded? Because it's all related to the HAF related funds. So when does this all kind of become a wrap and it just really then can focus on execution?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We do anticipate to bring this phase of our work to Council, Planning Commission first, and then Council in September. So it's coming quickly. I will say that we did commit through our work with CMHC to have this concluded by September as well.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Neal, please go ahead. Mr. Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Autumn, a couple of questions. One related to the adaptive reuse. I think that looks excellent. I know from other examples in other cities, something like that can really add character and charm to a residential neighborhood. So that's great. And I know the challenges of code, so overcoming that is really positive. Just curious how that will work on the zoning side of it.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Good question. In some of these areas, they're already zoned. Like a lot of these types of buildings are already in the warehouse district, for example. We see a lot of these in the Center Square neighborhood where they're currently being used as residential. Some have already been converted into commercial. So the zoning does allow for that. We see some of this along 13th Avenue, and that zoning does accommodate for commercial already. So zoning hasn't been the significant hurdle in these types of applications. It's usually the cost that it takes to convert the building to meet building code, or the design of that and not knowing exactly where to go, the confusion of the process. And so with this program, we're trying to alleviate some of that.
Oh, some good news, thanks. Second question relates to the Housing Accelerator Fund. I think Stu, got a bit of an answer here related to a report in September. A lot of the work being done right now, I've formed a team, some great policy directions, looks like everything's going in the right direction. Just curious if the dollar allocation has been established in terms of those streams of work, like the $30-ish million?
Yeah, so through you, Mayor Masters, my team isn't utilizing the, how would I say this? The funding allocations for the half dollars have not been determined yet.
Is there a timeline for that?
Yeah, I see Ms. Pham is going to answer that question for you.
Sorry, spam, go ahead.
Through the chair, we're just working through right now the work plans. Obviously, we had 11 initiatives within the half action plan, and so you'll start seeing the programming coming out starting in 2025, hopefully Q1, on kind of how we're looking to allocate the dollars that we have.
Great, thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Am I able
Please
to
go
ask
right
another
ahead.
question? Sorry, coming back to the conversion piece there that Jason was talking about, and I can appreciate it would be a much bigger project, but any plans to do the similar type of project reverse the other way from commercial to residential?
That's a good question. Through some of the HUF work we have in their office to residential conversion, and so that is some of the work that we, as a city, will be undertaking through some of the future work that we're doing with the HUF initiatives.
Right, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Newbacall. Ms. Terry Klein, welcome. If you don't mind, Jamie Lara is a new member, so I'm just gonna, even though I just said your name, can I ask you to introduce yourself to Jamie?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Terry Klein. I'm the Senior Director of Property Management for Harvard Developments, and I am the RD bid representative on this committee. Nice
Sorry.
to meet you.
I can turn that on for you if you like, Jamie.
Oh, nice to meet you. Thank you.
There you go. Any other questions for planning and permitting? You know I have some. In terms of their adaptive reuse, you're going to launch that when, Q3?
Yeah, we anticipate getting that on the website in short order. So Q3 is at the end of September. We hope to have it all up and running. I'm just going to look back at Mr. Conley.
Just looking for confirmation.
I think I'm right.
Okay. You ran through some of the numbers as it relates to revitalization and intensification. And it was a 2-year program, 600,000 granted out,
Yes,
and 1.7 million in tax exemptions?
approximately, yeah.
Sure. Fair enough. We're not accountants here. Wait, I gotta look around. Nope, no accountants here. Just kidding. But roughly, those are the numbers, approximately,
Yeah,
those are the numbers.
I will say, Mayor, that we are bringing a more comprehensive report to council in September as well on this.
Are you prepared to tell this group off the cuff if you think it's successful?
We think this is successful in terms of we provided all of the grant funding. We have some lessons learned in that we weren't necessarily hitting some of the targets that we were anticipating to hit out of the program. For example, and it'll be outlined in the report when it comes forward, we didn't necessarily see additional value added to the property due to some of the interior renovations or those types of additional work that was done on the property. It didn't provide a different assessed value of the property or any different public realm experience for people who may be walking by. So it benefited the property owner, but didn't necessarily provide to revitalization or intensification. So those are some of the lessons learned that we're taking and re-looking at on how we can get to hit some of those targets better.
Thank you for that. And in terms of heritage incentives, in 2024, and this is a recurring, this isn't a pilot, this is our heritage program, 250,000 grants out in 2024. That's the cap of the program? Like, we've given it all away, out, away, sorry.
I don't have that exactly in front of me. Oh, yes, it does say fully committed, fully allocated, yes.
Okay, and then grants and tax exemptions was about 626,000.
For this boundary area,
this,
in total, yes, with the grant dollars, it was 962.
What year was the heritage, I know I've been sitting here, but it's a blur. What year was the heritage package as it exists for this incorporated? 2023,
2022.
2022. And each of those years, we've given out $250,000.
Was it fully allocated last year? We can confirm that.
Yeah, I think when it was presented last year, Ms. Bryden, if I'm not mistaken, you deemed it a success.
I would deem it as a success. If it hadn't been fully allocated, it was very close. And there was a lot more applications to designate properties to access the incentive program. I just can't confirm if all of the 250 was fully allocated, but yes, we did see a lot of interest in the program.
Sorry, so we know it's problematic when they sit on a holding list because it's questionable, and so with the granting program, you're saying that more folks applied to actually claim the status?
Yes, yeah. We had more designations. The program actually changed to allow some minor grants to heritage inventory properties as well, which we've seen being utilized, so they're still upkeeping heritage inventory properties, but the encouragement is through the larger numbers when they are actually designated.
Okay, so even if it's upkeep on some of those minor, it's, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. When does the heritage report come?
I don't have the exact date. We try to hit Q1 every year.
Okay, thank you. Mike, I have a bit of a question as it relates to permits. You had for downtown, I think specifically, it was $28 million in permits last year. It's fine, 10 million this year. In terms of, I think that's commercial, or is that commercial and residential? Let's be honest, it's all commercial.
Pardon me, what was the question?
The question is downtown, you had a permit dollar value on one of your slides. 2023 was 28 million, 2024 was 10.5. It's the mathy thing, and you. I think they're all commercial.
Oh, I see it's there.
Okay, there you go.
So tiny.
Yeah, it was, Ms. Dotson.
Mr. Weens, do you know the answer to that one?
I'm sorry, through the chair, what was the actual question?
Sorry, the actual question is, of those numbers of 10.5, most of that's commercial, correct?
Yeah, most of that would be commercial. I
Yeah.
mean, it would encompass both, but.
Yeah, most of the applications that we get downtown are commercial, yes.
Okay. Do we track the average approval time for those when we're talking about documentation and permitting? I know in terms of responses, you guys are fabulous, and I know in residential, we're turning those out. On the commercial side, how many times have we ended up with a delay past the 20 days from when we first received even an incomplete application? Because I know that's part of the problem sometimes.
Yeah, Mr. Weens has those. We do track from the first point of contact when an application is received, and we are tracking to the end of when the permit is actually released as well, or approved.
Permit released?
Yeah.
Did you have any in there that you noted were significant in length?
I don't have all that in front of me.
I don't know if we have the time.
He has them
stamps
all
on
here.
those. I don't have the time stamp on
Yeah, I don't
those.
have them all in front of me either, so just so clear.
But we would have that data for any of our applications.
Yeah, I guess what I'm wondering about is kind of in the mandate of this committee that if there was a recurring issue that it would be brought up. So if every year, given the number of permits, it's not that we're not dealing in thousands here, although we are dealing in millions of dollars. But if there was a recurring issue, and I know you guys are it's great about you're looking at those on a housekeeping basis always, I understand that. But in terms of this committee's mandate, specifically as it relates to the city center core, have there been applications that have been delayed from first point of contact to, I think the target is 20 days, right?
Yeah, and through you, Mayor Masters, one of our biggest struggles was those house to commercial, because often it was an individual business owner purchasing the property and may not have had the information through that purchase to understand what it took to bring the building up to a business building code. And so identifying that problem and with the release of this alternative solution kind of blueprint, we're hoping to alleviate a lot of those concerns. So when we see kind of those problems, we're trying to address it on, is there something that the city can release in terms of assisting through information or a different type of a service. We are continually, and the committee can certainly help by encouraging people to come talk to us before purchase of a property, before designing what they may want to do in terms of new fit-ups or new businesses in those, and we can help them through the process. It becomes difficult when we are brought on at application stage when they've already made the investment, and then some of those issues are found. It just becomes a lot harder of a conversation.
I believe I know you're the one specifically we're both talking about. Okay. And so that adaptive reuse, but I'll come back again. So come back to the question. In terms of the time from first point of contact to permit release, so you've designed a program to help alleviate some of what was a big hiccup. Have there been any others? And what I'm trying to get to is, do you quantify them by code deficiency? Do you quantify them by, and I know applications come in all the time, kind of incomplete. I get that. Things aren't ticked or written in the right place. I appreciate that. But is there another kind of category that you can break it down to that's causing grief?
Another one, and I'm just looking to Mr. Comrie, that we see with the new code would be accessibility. And there's been a lot more accessibility introduced into the new code for, that was released January 2024. And so we're trying to keep our finger on the pulse if there's anything we can do to help applicants through that. I know that when you were speaking to the Creative City Center last night, Ms. Donnelly brought up the accessibility, and that is what she's talking about.
No, I appreciated the comments you guys made last night about that project from a capital perspective. Mr. Comrie, is there anything you want to add?
No.
I'm going to tell you, if you're going to have a guy join your side, nope, okay. Thanks, Captain. Thanks for being there. Okay, yeah, I think that in terms of tackling it with that kind of solution, that's great. When that report comes forward, or when this gets, sorry, you're not bringing that report to council on this program, though, correct?
No, that program is within our authority. We're
100%.
releasing it.
When you go to release it, do you ever define the problem for folks as to what the solution is it's being created for?
Do we're defining them? Do you want to answer this one?
Okay. Ms. Bratton.
Through the chair, I think that when we release it, we will work to try and get the news out there as best we can, and part of that is talking to this committee today about what the program is. And I get what you're saying about defining what the problem is so people understand what the solution is that we're trying to put in front of them. Absolutely, we will look at that in terms of our communication.
Yeah, especially in this case, because it sounds like a little bit more on the not habitual investor in real estate. It's the special purpose specific to an entrepreneur type of.
100%.
Yeah.
And I know that you're aware of like a couple of projects in particular that really kind of spurred this conversation and got Mr. Comrie thinking about how we could help solve those issues.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's just if you don't define sometimes what the problem is, and then people go, that doesn't apply to me. Oh, it might. Anyways, that's great work. Sorry. Mr. Comrie, you turned your microphone on.
Sorry, through the chair, I was trying to turn it off. Not off to a good start.
Thoroughly enjoying your participation. Thoroughly enjoying. Actually, Mr. Niebegel, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to step back to the heritage grants and that you were talking about earlier. I've had the fortune or unfortunate to sit on the heritage advisory group, so have been part of reviewing all of those particular submissions. And I have to really give the city credit that, you know, the new regime or process around this is about tenfold better than the chaos around heritage that's happened for decades in the city. But you know, reviewing all of those and through that exercise, the $250,000 the city is giving away, to me, and I would have had this conclusion before being on the committee, but been since being on there, I think we're underfunding that by about 4 times. That, you know, there's a significant lack of funding on the heritage side. Would the administration be of similar view on that, or do you think we're kind of funding that about the right amount?
Oh, do tell. Who wants this one?
Okay, so we're not bringing forward any, well, I mean, I appreciate your work on that committee, and I appreciate the comments. Right now, we are looking at asking for a little bit more flexibility in the intensification and revitalization programs, and we will be bringing forward an ask with that, and it can be used towards heritage properties as well, where we can look at stacking some of those. The intensification and revitalization grant wouldn't be just for heritage properties. It would be for other properties within a defined area.
Yeah, okay. The question really wasn't for you, it was more for
Oh.
the mayor and Councillor Hawkins to hear, so.
That's why my head hit the desk. But I appreciate you taking it. And they're not gonna, I think when you come forward in Heritage, it'll be too late in 2025, and in fact, it's probably too late right now. But if your report comes forward on the incentivization and revitalization, money that's going out, from what I'm hearing from you, you're looking a bit more for facade work and improvements on the exterior. It would just add to the public realm more than interior work, but clearly if the buildings are, especially if they're downtown, we want folks to be working and living in our downtown. So, would you give it more? I'm not even going to make eye contact with Councillor Hawkins right now. I think when you max out on these programs, it's a clear sign that you could be doing more. I think if we were going to prioritize one over the other, it is probably heritage, just from an age of building perspective. I guess my question would be, how valuable is the tax exemption?
Through the chair, there is some use for the tax exemption, and I think that there is value there. What we're hearing, though, is that cash up front to actually do the work or help finance the work is really valuable.
Yeah.
So that's, I think both tools are good. I think the cash up front, that's what we're seeing is people, especially when you get some smaller businesses that are looking at doing work, to be able to cash flow their projects.
I feel the same way.
I just want to highlight for the committee that Ms. Dawson referred to that report. That report's not coming standalone. So if you'll recall, Councillor Hawkins, I think spurred on by Mr. Niebergall, put forward the housing motion back in January. And so we're really using the response to that motion as our report card. And our intensification and revitalization grants came from our underutilized land strategy, or they were kind of part of an action item out of the underutilized land strategy. So we're kind of encompassing all of that into our report. So that revitalization intensification piece will be included in that report.
In addition, there was work that was asked in relation to the office motion about what incentives were required downtown and in the warehouse. And so we've been working with the bids and others, as well as EDR, to determine what type of incentives would be valuable for businesses downtown. And so we're trying to tie that all together.
And not to move on without answering Stu Niebergall's question. Frankly, they'll be up to next council if they want to allot any more money into the Heritage Fund. I doubt it hits their radar when they hit this floor drinking from a fire hose, trying to kind of
Fair enough.
manage through business as usual and whatnot, but shortly after that, or just at the same time, I think the Heritage Report will be coming through, and so part of that will be contingent upon the next council and the value they place on the heritage property.
Through the chair, if I could also add, I think that the analysis on the number of applications and the amount of maybe applications that we couldn't fully fund, et cetera, would help also would also help that conversation, and perhaps for 2026 or moving forward, then increase that funding amount.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I do have one last question. It's just a thought. I don't know how Ms. Dawson is probably, I know it's under the deputy city manager, but ultimately under you. You talk about doing work on bylaws, making them more readable. You know I'm a fan. User-friendly. Is there anything about the zoning bylaw, don't get angry when I say this, but is there a problem with having it read similar to the other biggest city north of here in the province? Like, why do our bylaw languages have to be so different? Sorry, I apologize.
So, I understand that actually the city of Saskatoon is going through a process to redo their zoning bylaw as well. Bylaws don't have to read different. They can be similar. They're up to the municipality on how they want to do it. When we redid ours in 2019, there was some changes, and I know that particularly to the land use classifications, and I think it confused a lot of people. And so we've been trying to work away at, I guess, relieving that confusion for people on what their land use is actually classified, and trying to make it more common language. And so we will continue to do that work as we focus on a customer approach to that zoning bylaw.
Yeah, I get a lot of folks that invest in both cities, and there is, to your point, you know, there's frustration with, even if there was reference to, similar to, M3 zoning, you know, whatever. That's probably a bridge too far, but they're not that fundamentally different.
That's good feedback, and I actually had never thought about using a comparator to Saskatoon on some of our information guides. So we'll take that away and see what we can do with that. Thank you.
No, it's good. And then the only other thing is there ever any consideration, I know you guys have been powering through a whole bunch and half added that much again. It's all good work. Is there any ever thought to partnering on a MyTex program with the university or someone in urban planning who could actually do a bunch of the menial work? I don't want to say menial, but you know, that laborious work as it relates to even going through it and cleaning it up, finding where there's contradictions, all those types of things. Because I know it's a lot of what you're working on.
Yeah, we have that kind of on our radar. I hadn't thought of MyTax or the university, but we can approach them as well. But yes, we are looking to do some of that focused on the user work in the upcoming year. And we did actually employ a summer student this year that helped us with some of that work as well.
Same similar principle. Okay, next. Anybody else have any questions? I'll let these poor people go. All right. Thank you very much for the report. Really appreciate it, and appreciate the work that you've done on solving some of those problems. It's really great. We've got a mover. Councillor Hawkins moved it on the floor. I'll just call the question. Any opposed to? Seeing none, carried. And we'll now consider item 24-7, the downtown construction update. I will ask Deputy City Manager Curtis Doney to introduce the communication.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mayor Masters and committee. We'll walk through a presentation on our construction overview for 2024. Joining me today is a team that oversees our construction. I won't introduce everybody. So start off, so the 2024 construction program is well underway. Generally, it's progressing on schedule. We did experience some delays in June as we had a fair amount of rain. However, as we know, we've had a hot, dry July and now August, and that has allowed construction to be on schedule and even ahead of schedule with some of our larger projects. So this map is what we showed you back in February. Now, of course, we finalized our plans and we're fully into implementation and construction. I want to highlight a few things that have changed since February just to bring them to your attention. So one thing in particular is we noticed that there's too much construction planned around General Hospital with the parkade that was planned there by the Saskatchewan Health Authority. And so what we did is we deferred some water main work on Quebec Street and 13th Avenue and shortened up some water main replacements on Halifax and Ottawa Street. And we highlight that just because it's a situation where we made a decision later in the planning phases because we knew that doing all the work at the same time around that location would have caused big impacts to the SHA's construction project and just as importantly impacts to residents and users of the hospital. In addition, to advance our program to replace lead water pipes, 2 locations were added, one along Garnet Street and the other on Metallic, which are 17 and 18 on the map there. We also finalized our plans for renewing our wastewater sewer lines, which saw 2 additions in the city center. This work is generally less invasive than water main work. We're usually in and out in 2 or 3 days, and this is where we put the pipe within the pipe or unravel the sock. You may have heard that analogy inside of a pipe and can restore it for the future. The last addition that happened was alley renewal on a few actually that were in the city center. You heard about one earlier from the downtown bid. That alley work was coordinated with 11th Avenue project to make sure that the impact was as small as possible. And of course, before starting any new work, whether it's in the city center like this or throughout the city, we engage with those impacted businesses, send out notification letters to them, and make sure that they are aware of any impacts that might occur, like water outages, and work with those 2 businesses to talk about, is there a day of the week that they may be closed that it'll have a smaller impact on them. So those are just a few of the changes that happened from when we were here in February. We're going to talk now about the warehouse updates, and primarily this project is, of course, the Dewdney Avenue Corridor Renewal Project. It started on April 29th, and progress is proceeding as planned. This is a major corridor in the warehouse district, and we understand that it's having an impact on residents and businesses in the area. And of course, we're doing our best to minimize that impact, keep businesses and residents informed and the warehouse district engaged about those impacts. We're meeting regularly with the warehouse district and taking part in information sessions put on by the warehouse district that we attend and thank them for that, where residents and businesses can come to get an update and ask any questions they may have. We found those would be very helpful where it's the one-on-one conversations, and so people are aware of what's coming up in the future. As we have been moving through this project, we're temporarily reinstating portions of the road, which typically is not done on active construction sites, but we know it's very important to maintain access in this area. We've also identified some innovative approaches, and one innovative approach that you won't see as you are walking around the area, but we've actually used the old water pipe to house a sewer pipe when we're doing the temporary work. And so instead of having extra temporary sewer pipes running above ground, they're going through the old water main pipe. So just an example where we're trying different things to minimize the impact as much as possible. Before the Dewdney Avenue project broke ground, we got onto Cornwall Street and Scar Street. You see them highlighted in the brown vertical lines there. And we did lead water connections there. So we placed those lead connections, paved Cornwall, Scarth, and Rose to ensure that they were in as good a condition as possible, knowing that they would see some increased traffic. Construction on Dewdney will move into the next phase at the start of September. This phase is expected to last the entire month of September, and we will have a closure of Albert and Dewdney, which is going to have a major impact. This is going to be done because we are digging 8.5 to 9 meters into the ground and connecting a very large wastewater pipe to the existing pipe. So that work will start early September and go till approximately the end of September, with communication going out soon. Work on Dewdney Avenue is projected to continue until the end of October, and then the road will be open for the winter. Above ground work will begin in May of 2025, and we anticipate it to be completed by the end of 2025. I'll turn over to Mr. DeWall to give a few lessons learned on this particular project so far.
Thank you, through the chair. So the construction on Dewdney did have some impacts, and some of the things that we learned as we went through the process were really challenges with visibility of parking signage in a changing construction conditions. So as the site changes, we also needed to change how we were directing people to the temporary parking that we had located on the yard site. So we've had to move some signs and be very nimble in how we deal with those things. Wayfinding signage in addition to the traffic accommodation signage. So in a project like this, we would have a formal traffic accommodation plan, which is all those great orange signs that you see directing you where to go. But in addition to that, there was extra wayfinding signage that we needed to work with the bid on to help direct people to where you could access those businesses. And accessing those businesses also became challenging because parking became exacerbated on those areas. And as you may hear in coming weeks, parking within the warehouse district is already somewhat of a challenge with the conditions that are there. So just working, frankly, directly with stakeholders and working through some of those challenges with them. One of the things we also did, and thanks to the traffic group for helping us with this, we have a temporary road closure permit that you can apply for, but it's intended for construction and things like this where you're shutting down the road to do work and then opening it back up. What we found is that there's some businesses within the warehouse district that really need a road closure in order to do their work. These are logistics companies. They're companies that are currently using the existing warehouses as warehouses and doing business, and frankly, a lot of it within the warehouse district. And by working with traffic, we were able to adapt the permit process so that they could actually get a recurring road closure permit, so that any business that needed to close down a road because they are accessing it with large trucks or equipment, they can now do that without having to risk parking enforcement coming after them. We also found that we needed pick-up and drop-off zones for businesses along Dewdney, particularly for nightlife. We just needed to, being that we've changed the pattern of that traffic there, the parking lane turned into a driving lane, and that caused some challenges as rideshare companies and taxis continued to try and stop in the lane of traffic. So we adapted to that, removed some parking and added some drop-off zones for those companies to be able to access and use that to deliver folks to their nightlife. And then in addition to that, we also have looked into some crowd control at the nightlife in order to just keep people away from that roadway. As you can imagine, sometimes when people are having a good time, they may not have their thoughts focused on how the patterns of traffic have changed in front of the establishment. So we've employed some crowd control tactics there to help them stay safe in those nights.
Great, thank you very much. So lots of lessons learned, and like I said, next year we'll be moving towards the above ground work on Dewdney Avenue with an objective to have lots of positive improvements in the area into 2026. So now we'll shift to downtown updates. So the downtown is also seeing lots of work that will impact residents and businesses. And of course, we're working with the downtown district, engaging with businesses directly, and working with the third-party utilities to minimize the frustration as much as possible. So in the downtown, we've got three main projects that I'll highlight: 11th Avenue, Sass Drive, and the Albert Street Underpass. And so we worked on the Albert Street Underpass flooding sensors early in May, and so those are installed. And if you drive by the area right now, you see some signs above the intersection that will highlight do not enter if that underpass floods, and so those are active right now. We went through a bit of a testing phase, and they are ready to be used. We'll continue to use our emergency response plan if and when a flood does occur in the city, but those are to have that most immediate impact to reduce any risk to health and safety. Sass Power is leading two projects in the downtown right now, so on Sass Drive and 11th Avenue. In advance of the work on Sass Drive, we worked to cut out the median to allow vehicles to flow between Sass Drive and the Cornwall Parkade. When that construction started on May 6th, as mentioned earlier, the traffic impact was greater than anticipated during the end of the day commute. And so it was very difficult and unacceptable time to wait to get out of the Cornwall Parkade. And so we worked very closely with SAS Power and the contractor to administer an immediate solution, which saw flaggers directing traffic the very next day and a dedicated exit lane after a few days when the work allowed us to open up an additional lane. So we were very responsive with SAS Power and their contractor to figure out immediate solutions so that the next day commute they did not experience the same delays. In mid-June, SAS Drive's traffic restrictions changed, allowing more lanes of traffic to be open. And currently there's no traffic restrictions on SAS Drive, but there will be some intermittent restrictions as the fall progresses, as SAS Power does some work there, but very small restrictions. 11th Avenue renewal kicked off on April 29th, which seen the closure of 11th Avenue. We know this is being felt by people and businesses in the area or visiting the downtown, so we put a lot of attention into engaging with the downtown businesses and planning for the pedestrian environment. The city and SAS Power are minimizing the amount of sidewalks and road restrictions and closures, and so we worked very closely with the Cornwall Centre to keep them updated of the work, and we even got them access through the fenced off site so they could do some of their own work. Through coordination with the downtown district, wayfinding signs for pedestrians have been created and installed, and we've installed some pedestrian crosswalks and received feedback that they were too steep, and so made adjustments to make them work for as many people as possible. And of course, 11th Avenue is expected to wrap up in 2024 here in late October, and the road will be entirely open for the winter before we go into next year's work. To improve the interim conditions, we will reinstate the road and sidewalk cuts more permanently than would be a typical practice. And so we'll reinstate concrete with concrete and install some temporary use asphalt. And then the asphalt surfaces will be replaced with asphalt. We're planning for next year's work right now, so design is progressing and finalizing as we speak. We look to tender the city work this fall and then have the construction start next year as planned. Eric will share a few more comments, and Mr. Dowell will share some comments about 11th Avenue and lessons that we've learned.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, obviously one of the main things that we learned this year is how much attention needs to be paid to parkade emptying. When the original planning was done, as Mr. Doney noted, we actually removed a center meridian on SAS Drive so that we could get traffic moving out of the parkade, but it turned out to not be enough. One of the other things that I've learned about traffic accommodation is that it is a bit of a prediction of human behavior. And when we make a large change like this, although we can plan as good as we can, sometimes the way that traffic moves isn't what we expect. And so as a result of that, and as Mr. Doney had mentioned, and working with SAS Power, they had flaggers on site the very next day. And those flaggers have the expertise to be able to actually flag that traffic and move it manually there as needed, and then we can go back to the traffic accommodation plan and make those adjustments as needed. So that is a strategy that we'll be employing in the future. Accessibility in construction zones was another piece that really came to light with 11th Avenue. Obviously, we wanted to keep people moving as much as we possibly could within the downtown. And so we met with our community well-being staff and asked them to help us make adjustments on 11th Avenue to make it more accessible. And this is where the ramps that Mr. Doney's talking about started to develop, and it was a very good addition to the plan. And we find that, oftentimes as an able-bodied person, I'm not necessarily thinking about how someone in a wheelchair is going to navigate a construction site. And so I think it's a key impact that we want to make sure we're paying attention to in the future. I can't overstate the importance of direct and continuous engagement with the bid and the stakeholders and how essential this was. We set up regular construction update meetings with RD Bid. We do those every second week on Monday mornings. And at these meetings, we actually bring city staff who are involved in managing and coordinating these projects, and we meet with stakeholders and the bid. And it's just an open conversation to discuss what we've completed, what we're expecting in the coming weeks, and what are the challenges that we're currently seeing in that time period and how we can adapt. And those bi-weekly meetings really bared fruit. We saw lots of changes that we could make, little pathways that we could make, pedestrian accessibility that we could adapt to help the traffic, pedestrian traffic and regular traffic, vehicle traffic move through the space. it just really gave us the ears to hear about the conditions that were becoming problematic. And I think one of the really key things, and I would say from, from my perspective, we actually took the guys that are within the construction site at the city with the hard hats on, and we brought them right into the meeting. And I think that was really effective because the stakeholders were hearing from the source what was actually going on site. And when they hear things like, this guy did this, or this guy did this, they start to see and understand the challenges and the changing conditions that we're dealing with. No construction project goes without a hitch, and no construction project goes completely to plan. I can vouch for that. Additional consideration needs to be given to the Crown City projects, the Crown and City projects working together, and making sure that we're coordinating our construction and keeping traffic moving. I do need to call out SAS Power here and thank them for their collaboration through this summer. It has been challenging, but they've been responsive and they've been there to help and assist us in making sure that traffic is going. Pedestrian wayfinding beyond the traffic accommodation, again, similar to the warehouse district, was also a key takeaway. And we thank the bid for working with us swiftly to get some signage made and get it placed to indicate how people can access different businesses along the 11th Ave strip. The challenge with that wayfinding, and I always want to create a map for people, but that map changes constantly. And so this is something that we're going to have to look at for next year. And what is the best communication tactics to share with the community and business owners as to how the heck people are getting to where they want to go?
Thank you very much, Mr. DeWall. And the last topic we've got is Scarf Street. So I'll just give you a bit of a update of where we're at with that. This is definitely future construction, but you may have heard about it, and so I thought it'd be a good time to share information. So a survey seeking feedback on the future access in the area was conducted last year in anticipation of construction in the future. We heard through that survey that there's very strong public interest keeping the mall as a pedestrian-only area. And so now we're focusing on hearing what people want to see and do in the area, as well as hear from the surrounding businesses, which is critical, property owners and community partners about their thoughts and ideas for activating the space and how they'd like and what they would need on site to support those plans and ensure their business can thrive. This round of engagement was kicked off last Saturday at I Love Regina Day. Our booth was well visited and we heard lots of useful feedback. I'll give you some examples of what people said that they currently do and what they'd like to do in the future. So currently people come downtown for a variety of reasons, such as visiting the Victoria Park play structure, various local restaurants, shops, the library of course, and as well as the farmers market, movies in the park and the Globe Theatre shows. In the future, a few ideas that were shared with the team is that they'd like to enjoy guided walking tours, public art and music, more unique shops and food, attractions and entertainment such as fun zone for kids or a place for an exciting nightlife. More bike racks and lanes for bikes and e-scooters was common comment, and a shady spot in the summer and patios in the winter was also identified, as we talked about earlier about patios and the importance of those. So the team will continue over the next few weeks to pop up at the farmers market and in the mall space itself, while also meeting with businesses and property owners, as well as community groups who use the public space. Engagement for this phase will wrap up at the end of September. The feedback will inform the development of a vision for the Scarf Street Mall, as well as initial design that will be shared in early 2025 to collect thoughts before taking a recommendation to City Council in the spring. Consultation with community will continue to occur in 2025 and 2026 as the functional and detailed designs are developed and working towards construction in 2027. There's a Be Heard page right now that has more information and updates that are available for the public. So this is an overview of the construction in downtown for 2024, and we're happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen? Before anybody thinks, turn a light on, I'll just ask the question. What is being designed for Scarf Street?
Through the chair. So nothing is being designed right now. We're doing the engagement, and then with that engagement we will bring something forward to council. The big decision is whether or not they'll be pedestrian only or whether or not there'll be traffic access, and that's a council decision.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to double check. From the folks around the table, pedestrian only? I'm just doing a straw poll here. Terry, why don't you tell me what you think? Pedestrian only? No. Stu, what do you think?
Pedestrian only.
Jason, what do you think?
No, not pedestrian only.
Councillor Hawkins?
I'm waiting to hear from my voters this November.
Chris Lane.
No.
Jamie.
Pedestrian only.
Interesting. Interesting. Who spends time downtown?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Every day.
Exactly my point.
Every day.
That is excellent feedback. We'll make sure we
Yeah.
capture it all.
Straw poll. Honestly, it works. Sorry, I turned all your lights off. Terry Klein, go ahead, please.
Mr. Doney, you indicated Albert and Dewdney closure in September. Did I hear you right?
That is correct.
Okay. Complete closure, restriction?
Yeah. So, we are going to dig a very, very large hole there. So I'm going to say complete closure,
Okay.
but there's actually going to be one southbound lane open, but it is not for heavy traffic. It is for really local traffic, like any heavy traffic will increase the weight and put the project at risk, so complete closure for planning purposes.
East, west, north, south, complete closure.
Not, through the chair, 9-meter hole.
No, understood. I just want to
9
make sure
meters.
I understand. Okay. Okay. Can I keep going?
Yep.
Fabulous. Mr. DeWall, you indicated, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, that there's continual change as it relates to wayfinding, closures, those kinds of things, and stakeholder communication is key. And I know that you've done a really great job in keeping Judith up to speed and things that are going on. But as I was listening to you guys, I was scrolling through the city website, and it would be really great if there was some kind of a portal that we could direct people to, that they could just go and click, and on any given day, they would know what's going on. I know it's difficult, especially for people who maybe don't visit downtown as often, to understand exactly what's happening every day, and that leads to frustration and people's, thought of, I'm never going downtown again because it's too hard to navigate. So just a little bit of feedback there.
Through the chair.
That's all I have at the moment.
Noted. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Neewagal, did you have some questions?
Kind of related to your survey and your straw poll and this here. That's, I think, again, the core of the issue, around downtown activation as a whole. It appears, and this is just a small example of Scar Street, of asking the people about the downtown revitalization of people who are already commonly using it. But if you're trying to reactivate it, it's actually getting a lot more people out in the, the suburbs and in the peripheral area. And I guess I just want to understand what kind of activity are you doing, if any, to understand what kind of things would influence them, and Scar Street being an example, to get them downtown.
Which one of you would like that one? Nobody. Nobody wants it. Judith, you want to come up and answer that one?
That's awesome.
I think activation is actually the downtown bid, with due respect.
Yeah.
Through the chair, maybe, can I just start and then I'll let Judith pick it up?
Or I will. Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, so there's a lot more than just Scar Street going on, obviously, in this area. So we have a chalet that is going to be permanently located in the northeast corner of the park, which is currently, foundation is currently being put in. We also have the new square site facility, which is also going to activate the downtown. So I think it's important for administration, and they recognize this, of course, to look at holistically what it means for Scar Street, and what Scar Street could be, and how to attract people into the downtown, because that point is very well taken.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Just before I turn on Judith's microphone to talk about activation, let's talk about that 1,000-foot level. So hypothetically, you weren't here, Mr. DeWall, so this question is just a hypothetical. In what world would we have shut down 2 adjacent streets in a downtown? Go ahead. In what world would anybody in any downtown have thought that was an okay thing to do?
Through the chair, I'm going to say that I actually can't answer that question.
That's a good answer. I'm just wondering, you know.
However, I'll have a city center update here, and I'm going to introduce you to someone who most definitely could.
Yeah. Ms. Versak, you and I have talked often about that idea of the 1,000-foot level and how people move and where to activate. You can't activate everywhere, but I think the question from Mr. Niebergall was along the lines of what is the activation that's being talked about as it relates to Scar Street?
Through the chair, this is a loaded question, and I will actually answer, you know, in what city would you close down two adjacent streets? And full disclosure, I moved here the day the hoarding went up on the City Square Plaza project, so I inherited that project. You know, I think hindsight's 20/20. That probably was not the best location for that type of street closure and traffic routing in the big scheme of transportation within the downtown. So unfortunately, it's something we have to deal with. To your question about activation, I'm going to back up what Eric was saying, because I've been telling him this for a year since he started in his job. Over the past, say, 30 years, the city has done piecemeal improvements to the heart of the downtown, which is City Square Plaza, Victoria Park, and FW Hill Mall. The city contemplates that as City Square. They look at it as one, but it's never been planned as one piece that kind of serves different purposes for the community. And I've always gone back to Eric saying, we really, and I hate the term master plan, but there should be something that really contemplates what activation goes where, at what times, and at what intensity. Because things have changed. I know there are conversations I've had with some of the park staff, because Victoria Park had always been like a memorial park, and then all of a sudden you have soccer teams coming out and kind of playing around, not formally, but you got the parks people saying, you're wrecking the grass. But, you know, if the evolution of this park is from this memorial, reflective type park into something that's a lot more active, we should be developing or making investments that help facilitate what that activation is. You know, we talk about Folk Fest and how can we make that happen. You know, there's a lot of improvements the city could be making to that park in order to make their lives easier when they're loading in a big stage or bringing in generators. Like, can we be installing electrical in key locations to alleviate the need for generators, helping out those small or struggling events, new events that want to test out that space. Those are costs that, if the load could be taken off, makes downtown a more attractive place to consider for their event activation. That being said, our organization, we're starting to look at, again, for lack of a better term, a core activation playbook, which really does contemplate some of these public realm spaces, inventories our partners and what their needs are, and starts to try to put these pieces together. And then hopefully we can work with the city on what that future improvement, capital improvement plan could be to help get us to where we want downtown Center City to be. Did I answer your question?
Super insightful,
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judith.
I can
Go
go
ahead,
back?
Mr. Lane.
Hi, well, I think I will move from something very philosophical and 1,000-foot to very practical, perhaps. Mr. Doney, I'm curious about, at the end of construction season on 11th, sort of what happens through the winter? Does the scaffolding come down? Do we reactivate 11th as a normal thoroughfare, or how does that happen, and at what point in the chronologically does a change occur there?
Yeah, yeah, so at the end of the construction season, which, we'll estimate around the end of October, it'll be weather dependent and SAS Power's schedule, but the fences will come down and transit will go back on 11th Avenue as we talked about earlier, and it'll go back to, normal thoroughfare road. And then depending on the schedule in the spring, I'll say May is when we would be looking to return and have the construction start again.
And is there movability based on the weather on those start and end dates? Like if we have a nice long fall, will you keep working past that?
Through the chair, so Sask Power may do some additional work, and the city has some prep work for next year, but we don't have a contractor engaged to start the major work in 2024.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Mr. Carlson, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. So just a few things leading up to a question here. I think going back and looking at, Scar Street, as I do recall, I think in the downtown plan it references that as one of the options for consideration that came out of the plaza. I think this all speaks to sort of the interconnectedness of decision-making. Another original plan of the downtown plan was transit on the perimeter to free up 11th Avenue, with 12th Avenue becoming lesser dependent upon traffic. So I think, it's important. Councillor Hawkins, you talked about coordination, and I think decisions all have impacts of, we have to look at the impacts of all decisions down the line, and if a set of decisions are put forward to create a vision of the future, and it's difficult to pick and choose because there's going to be implications to that, and I think we're living with some of those. And then I would also suggest that, going back to something you said, Mayor, make sure we, pose a problem question for Scarth, so it's not just sort of survey related in what we prefer, because I think there are some objectives we'd want to achieve, and no offense to my friend Stu, but I'd want him making decisions on downtown Scarth Street when I think there's a lot of people with vested interests within that. So comments on that, and also want to go back to Dudney Avenue. Just want to compliment the team. I know there's a lot of wayfinding challenges that we've had, and I think the city's been very responsive to feedback, and Lisa established a very strong working relationship with the city and the members of the district that we're trying to maintain. So just kudos, and look forward to continuing to collaborate on that with you, and getting to the above ground work next year, so start to present the vision that it will be. So I guess I had no question.
You are completely allowed to make comments, sir.
Okay.
So there you go, completely allowed. Yeah, like I'm getting called by folks on Dudney Avenue deeply concerned about the winter. So just a heads up, in that the parking that's been put in place is blocks down, and maybe you've heard some of the same feedback, but when the site gets shut down, if something closer to where the where more businesses are operating, to create, because we're opening it up for, you can cross, right? And there's fenced area, there's dirt area, that if we can just even allow parking without creating, I'm not asking for asphalt or anything, but wayfinding and access, still huge concerns. And we heard the permit opened up for, what's it called, the Break, the new pool hall. And there's a string of businesses there that are, well, down significantly in terms of sales. And so they appreciate the communication, they appreciate that it will be beautiful when it's done. They have to survive it being done. That's the issue on 11th Sask Drive, Dudney Avenue. They have to survive it being done, and I know it's kind of out of the wheelhouse of normally what we kind of do. So on the one hand, really good work, and just a little bit of a flag, because it's some of what I'm hearing. A little bit of desperation there. All right, can I get someone to move the report? Sorry, thanks. Thank you, Jason Charleston, for making eye contact with me, so you can move it. Is there anything else, before I turn your mics off, is there anything else you wanted us to know based upon it? Like, is there anything else we know, look, we knew you were going to shut down Albert Street, Dewdney Avenue. This may be unavailable. But I appreciate, I'm actually, you know what, if I could just get you to tape, it's a really big hole, I will be good. That will just be my voicemail. And we'll go from there. Actually, now I want to ask you a question. Do you ever do press in advance? Like, do you actually do live television in advance of something this major going on? Because Albert Street, if you didn't think you had people's attention before on Dewdney Avenue, when we shut down Albert Street, my friend, it's going to be big. It's more curiosity, because I know we do press releases. I'm just simply asking, is it worth doing the circuit so it's very prescient in people's mind?
Through the chair, we'll definitely take that back to the comms team and suggest it might be something to do. Of course, we do news releases and we do, scrums all the time, and this may be one that may not be impactful on day one because there's fences and no hole, but as we start to progress, that might be a good way to get people's attention, particularly as we're talking throughout the country about underground infrastructure and some of the impacts some large cities have had.
Yeah, I think it's a great message. And I will plug, and I did tell Mr. Warren this, that, CTV said he did a great job when he went on there first time, so just saying.
Would you please make sure that people understand it's a road, not a budget?
Yes. Yes, we can ensure that is very clear.
Anyways, thanks for the update. Really, I actually appreciate those maps in terms of the work that's been done and the changes that have been done. Those are fabulous. That's really good information, so thank you. Any opposed to receiving and filing the report? Seeing none, carried. One last report, folks. We'll consider items 24-8, the city center update, and Mr. Eric DeWall is going to introduce this communication, and Mr. Doney's going to hang out with him, and I'll turn your mic on just in case. Do you have is there a presentation?
No, there's not.
Okay, you're just going to, all right, perfect. Mr. DeWall, please. No, sorry. Can I just get someone to move it before it happens, so then I don't have to remember? Thank you. Mr. Niebergall has moved it, and Mr. DeWall is going to present.
Through you, Councillor Hawkins, through the chair, thank you. So I'm going to go over a lot of information here. So if you have any questions, please, feel free to stop me. Firstly, I would just want to say a huge thank you to Elena Harrison. Elena Harrison joined City Centre as a City Centre precinct captain almost a year ago, and Elena managed a lot of the service requests and the calls and the day-to-day of our construction season and working with stakeholders, and she has been a huge asset to City Centre. So I just want to say thank you to Elena for that work. Elena's now moved into a position under Audrey Young's group in community well-being, and we're pretty excited for her to do that. As a result, we have brought on a new individual in the City Centre. His name is Jason Harris, and he is sitting here. And Jason is now the manager of City Centre, and I'm pretty excited to have him in. He's got a planning background and has had a lot of experience that's going to be an asset to me and to the City Centre as well, so thank you. I just wanted to touch, before I get into the meat and potatoes here, I just wanted to touch on a food truck permit question that had come up earlier and include that. So our traffic group actually did revise the food truck permitting policies and procedures in the spring, and those fees for those trucks were brought down by 75%. I believe they're between $200 and $300 right now. And we have currently 9 food trucks that are licensed, which is the highest number since 2017. So that's a great sign to see, and we thank traffic for that work because it's having an impact, so that's great. As you're aware, earlier this summer, the council passed the Downtown Vibrancy Initiatives, and a lot of work has been done over the summer here with the following completed to date. So we have repaired benches in FW Hill Mall. All the road line painting in the downtown has been completed. We've repaired localized alley asphalt repairs in 2 alleys and repaved one entirely. We've added 40 flower planters into the city center in downtown. We've planted 65 new trees. We've removed the cost for patio permits, as mentioned earlier. We've created the bi-weekly RD bid and RW bid update meetings to manage construction feedback. We have a downtown service agreement in the final stages of execution here, which has already bid, working with us to do the solid waste removal, as you've heard, and graffiti removal, as well as other services. We've added wayfinding signage. We've strung lights into Victoria Park, which have a stunning effect. And we've also added additional resources to the landscaping in the parks. Additionally, I think initially we had identified 189 repairs that were required in the sidewalks. I learned later that the sidewalk repairs, although we identify them as 189 single repairs needed, those repairs individually will sometimes require asphalt, concrete work, as well as paving stone work. So, and those are different skill sets and performed by different folks. So we've actually performed almost, I think it's 400 different repairs in the downtown and sidewalks and surfacing this summer. And that crew have just been superstars, and I so appreciate their work. I'm seeing, I can look out my office window and I can see the work that they've done. So when we look at those 189 repairs as individual repairs, we're 87% complete, and the remainder of those repairs are actually within the boundaries of existing construction sites. And so we're working with the contractors to do some of those repairs as well. And once those construction sites collapse, they'll move in and do the rest of those repairs. As we've heard from RD Bid, we've got arts, culture, and placemaking efforts. Have seen 2 installations completed, with a 3rd underway, which is the art on the Parks building, and a 4th one in the planning stages. Efforts to create murals and asphalt art have realized 1 mural completed already by the Copper Kettle, with a 2nd one scheduled for this fall, and then early spring, as Judith had mentioned earlier. FW Hill Mall and Pat Viaco Plaza lighting are partially complete with new poles in place, and we're actually expecting the installation of that lighting by RD Bid on Saturday, which will be fantastic. That'll extend that nighttime public realm into the plaza as well into FW Hill Mall. The underutilized site activation continues with construction planning and is expected to open for its first full season in spring of 2025. We're trying to move as rapidly as we can to support the bid in this effort as winter starts to become a reality here. There's some civil works that need to be done, and they're currently expecting that development permit here shortly so that they can get moving on that. And we continue to support them in those efforts. In the warehouse district, 8th Ave has seen obviously an intensification of traffic congestion due to Dewdney Avenue construction. And as we've mentioned, there's definitely been some challenges on that roadway as we go. And so we're adapting and working with our traffic and parking and services groups to make sure that we're reacting in a way that is going to keep the public as safe as possible as we continue. We're also experiencing good problems in the warehouse district. There's been new businesses that have opened and have definitely caused us some parking abrasions, call it. But we're excited to see that more people are coming to the warehouse district and are spending some time there. So that's wonderful problem to have. The vision plan and implementation plan is also underway, as you heard from Autumn Dawson earlier, and we will continue to support them in that work as well. New parameters were developed for road closure permits, as I mentioned earlier, so that the mixed-use nature of the area can be supported by allowing businesses to acquire a short-term road closure permit to conduct logistical work. And again, thank you for traffic for doing that. And then again, we also added those additional taxi and ride share drop-off points have been added. So these are the accomplishments sort of for this summer, and we're very thankful for everybody's work. Some of the challenges that we have seen have been vandalism of the plantings, specifically in Victoria Park and in the plaza. Our park staff need a huge thank you. They actually go into Victoria Park and the plaza every day and they reset it. Often the landscaped furniture that's in the plaza is thrown around in the middle of the night. All the plants and the planters along 12th Ave get dug up. For a while there, it was every single night. Extension cords are being stolen. So our park staff have worked diligently every day to get out there and before anybody comes into the downtown, get everything reset so that we can have a pleasant downtown for people to come and visit. Obviously, we have had some other challenges with just getting the feedback in construction and adapting to that. So this meeting that we've set up with RD Bid to do the construction update is something we've done bi-weekly, and we are not going to stop doing that. We recognize that the nature of those meetings may change as we move into the fall, but we've found them so beneficial in stakeholder outreach that we want to continue that. We want to continue that flow of information, and we want to continue to hear from stakeholders and the bid on what it is that the City Centre team can do to support them and make sure that we don't have businesses closing or things like that. I think one of the things that, as I've been working in this role and really trying to wrap my head around the amount of activity that goes on in the city centre is frankly mind-boggling. And it's been a challenge for me to really understand and see all of the ins and outs of what's going on. But it has also been very, very encouraging. As I've met with other leaders in other cities as they come to visit for city building series and things like that, I repeatedly hear how beautiful our downtown is and how lucky we are to have the downtown. And so I hear a lot of challenges and I hear a lot of struggle, but at the same time I also want to highlight that our downtown has a lot going for it, and it's a really beautiful space, and I believe in it, and our city center branch also believes in it, and will continue to support it with everything that we can.
Excellent, thank you so much. Quick question, the short-term road closure permits, can you just explain that to me?
For sure. So the short-term road closure permit, through the chair, sorry, is actually your typical road closure permit, but within the RD bid boundary and the RW bid boundaries, we've made this available so that businesses can get this permit and do a road closure. So for instance, if somebody is operating a business that requires a semi-truck to block a roadway, rather than them having to take the chance of doing that and then being addressed by our parking enforcement crews, they can apply for this permit, and then they'll be permitted at a certain time of every day to close the road, and we give them the plan for that, and we provide them with a list of the signage that they need, and then they actually go out and close the road themselves. So they put their signs out, they close the road, they use that road for the time that they need, and then they open it back up again.
That's great, it's an innovative response to some of the issues that we were hearing. Go ahead, Chris Lane.
Thank you very much. That's an exciting update, and also just thank you to the work of the bid, and there's a collection of really exciting and tangible progress being made in our downtown. So that's a premise to maybe a philosophical question. Why is it so hard to change the perception that our downtown is undesirable or unsafe or unwelcome? Like, we have spent all afternoon talking about the fantastic things that are happening here, and yet I think as some others have pointed out, we are fighting an uphill battle around perception.
Yeah, through the chair, thanks for that, yes. I think one of the challenges is that we're a city that is not very adjacent to another large center. So the comparison is Saskatoon always, it's not another major center that is around. I grew up in Vancouver, and I can tell you when I drive through Vancouver, they have their issues. And so, without that comparison, this is sort of people's realm, and this is what they know, and so this is what they see. Additionally, I think some of the challenges that we see in the downtown are very visible. When somebody witnesses somebody having an outburst or is behaving in a way that is not normal, that scares people. Now, whether that fear is justified, that like whether their personal safety is at risk or something, is maybe a different question, but the perception is there. And as soon as the perception is there, that becomes a challenge to combat. So, we see things like open drug use and things like that. The feedback that I've got for sure is that those kinds of activities are very challenging for folks who want to come downtown, particularly, you look at our senior citizens that want to come and have lunch, and that can be a very big challenge for them, is the feedback that I've heard.
So as a follow-up question, is there an amount of activation or activity or positive energy that, if you think about, philosophically, not literally, like putting yourself out of business or putting the bid out of business, like what does the end outcome look like?
Well, through the chair, the question is a challenging one. And as I speak to people about the downtown and I refer to vibrancy and I refer to the initiatives that are going on, I always talk about any effort as one of 1,000 things. And really it does take that. It's going to take 1,000 things. And at the end of the day, when the more people you have in a space, the safer that space is because there's more eyes on it. And so we need to continue to develop the 1,000 things so that we can get folks into the downtown and that we have those people and we have that critical mass so that people can feel more safe in the downtown. And efforts like the square that RD Bid is heading, these beautification things, again, they're all one of 1,000 things, but together they're more than the sum of their parts.
Do we know what that critical mass is? Like Judith has done an excellent head count comparison, but is it 10,000 a day on Scarlett Street? I don't know. What would that look like? Do we know?
Well, through the chair, if you're talking about street counts, I don't know if I could just peg a number. Is lots a valid answer?
I would agree.
Through the chair, just some information that was shared from the bid earlier. I think one objective could be to get back to 2019 numbers. What did it feel like when you walked through downtown 2019? So that could be a starting point, is to get to that and then build from there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris Lane. Councillor Hawkins, go ahead, please.
I was going to ask a little bit the same question. It seems to me that you're in a circular problem here. Nobody's downtown, so one person goes downtown and feels unsafe. If you had many people downtown, many eyes would make more people feel safe, and more people would come downtown, which leads me straight into the catalyst projects. In your planning and thinking about downtown, how are you planning and thinking about library, arena, other catalyst projects?
So through the chair, those catalyst projects are not lost on administration. Administration does consider those things as we're looking at our downtown and as we look at the planning. The vision for downtown, is something that I think we could refine further. I think we could make it more physical. But those catalyst projects absolutely play a role, and they are considered in administration's work in the planning for downtown.
How are they being considered?
They're being considered as we work through our planning process for what projects we're doing, the infrastructure that we're putting in. We consider that when we're doing, like one of the catalyst projects was the catalyst pathway. And the pathway is a key piece that would link a lot of different areas. So when we look at that catalyst pathway and we look at where it should go, one of the questions we ask ourselves is, where are we doing, where is other work required? And what other construction are we doing in this space? Because the catalyst pathway is a surface project. It's not a subsurface project. However, if there is a pathway that would align where we were doing subsurface work that would require public realm surface work anyway, then we can actually incorporate that catalyst pathway into that subsurface work. So, and this isn't my area, but within our sustainable infrastructure group, they are very specifically looking at those key pieces and putting those together so that as these projects move through development, we're finding those efficiencies and supporting those catalyst projects on the way.
When you've been doing your planning and thinking about catalyst projects, let me take a couple. Do you have a preference for where a new library goes?
Through the chair, my personal preference doesn't really matter. I think we need to ask the people that are experts in where that should go and depend on their decisions.
Do the experts in your planning committee, have they discussed this, and do they have an idea?
Through the chair, I think the location of the library has a lot of different factors that would affect that. And I think that if I was to pick a location for the library, it would be in the city center.
How does your thinking about the downtown, this comes back to my greater downtown question, how does it relate to what's going on and planned for the yards, for Taylor Field, for the recreation area that may be developing around the pool, maybe a baseball diamond? How does that tie into your thinking about the core downtown that you've addressed?
Yeah, through the chair, thanks for that question. The connection of those areas to the downtown is critical. So we have some particular choke points that are challenging to overcome. We can talk about Albert Street Underpass as one of them. And then, of course, we all are all aware of the access that we have to the yards from downtown, which is very challenging too. So in the planning of the Catalyst projects, and in particular the Catalyst pathway, the connection of places like Real, the new aquatic center, some of these other underdeveloped sites that could see Catalyst pathways is absolutely key to the planning of those pieces.
Has there been any thought given to an overpass to get across the railroad tracks from the core into
Through the
into
chair.
yards?
Through the chair, over the last 5 years, it has been discussed. There's been several different scenarios considered, but at this time, without funding currently in place to look at a piece like that, it's hard to advance that, but absolutely a possibility in the future.
So if a piece like that comes forward, are you ready to be able to handle it in terms of supporting infrastructure?
Through the chair, it is considered, like that overpass or connection into the yards is something that the teams that are currently working on the yards are aware of and are considering, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Go ahead, Jason Carlson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I agree with Councillor Hawkins in that, fewer people downtown has led to some of the issues just becoming more prevalent, even if they may or may not have increased, just population-wise. And I've often thought, as Chris has, in terms of how do we address perception, but one of the conclusions or possibilities is it's not just a perception issue, that it's real. So from that perspective, since 2019, has crime in the downtown, drug use in the downtown, has that gone up or down? Statistically, because data is useful.
Through the chair, yeah, that's fair. Fair question. So I think through the chair, my understanding is that crime, well, I actually can't say because I understand that the crime rate is different depending on the type of crime. So I would want to refer that back to RPS. But I could get that information and pass that along.
That'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you for the update. The short and long answer are both yes, they've gone up. Oh my gosh, what did you say? Oh, I know what it was. Originally, there were, I just wanted to double check this, there were 189 sidewalk repairs that were kind of on record, but when we went out, we did 400 repairs?
So through the chair, yeah, it's, the way that this works is there was 189 repairs identified. However, when that translates to work orders, we have different crews that do different things. And so when it comes to work orders, it's more work because there's an asphalt crew. So the asphalt crew isn't going to go out and repair the concrete. So in total, there was 400 different responses to those repairs in the downtown. But there was 189 issues that have been, 87% of which have been resolved.
And were there any more, do you think, left outstanding?
A
little bit more significant work or such thing?
Yeah, through the chair. So like the plan is actually to, at the end of the season, when the construction site breaks down, there will be a tour of the downtown, and that'll include our manager of city center as well as our roadways group, and they will inventory again what we're looking at for the following year.
Okay. I'm going to tell you this, those sidewalk repairs are, I was cheering them on as I was, getting out of my car one day. Way to go, guys. This is amazing. 87% already. August is exceptional work. Like that's really good work, and I appreciate knowing that we'll continue to inventory them as well, as opposed to let them get, what we were looking at, the condition of some of them was.
We're not going back to from where we came.
Yeah, and even the paving of the alleys, I know it's prevented some painting this fall, but I know, talking to some of the seniors that live in downtown, that will be huge for them as well, because sometimes that is how they traverse. Folks who live downtown are pretty comfortable downtown. And then in terms of the lighting and the murals, I think, talking the downtown bid and Lisa and Judith, light and color and art is all of the vibrancy that you talk about. So I just want to finish by telling you that, Judith, not to tell tales out of school, but they thoroughly enjoy working with you. They wish everyone had the passion and willingness to go to work and roll up your sleeves to address the challenges and stuff that are happening in downtown. They wish they probably had a dozen of you. So it's excellent work that you're doing. Keep it up.
Through the chair, thank you. It's very satisfying work.
There you go. All right. I did get a motion for that one? I did. All right. Any opposed to receive and file? Seeing none? Carried. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Normally I give this to Councillor Hawkins in case you're all don't ever watch council. Any opposed to an adjournment? No? Thanks very much, guys. And thank you to the clerks today.